Good evening. The time is now 5:15. For tonight, we're streaming this meeting live on the district's YouTube channel, but I call this meeting to order. Let the record show that we have 5 board members present, and I move adoption of the agenda. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say, oh, hold on. Wanted to pull an item first before we move approval of that adoption. So I'll withdraw that. Wanting to pull item, where did it go? I-1 for the audit reports. The auditors from Clifton, Larson, Allen are unable to be here tonight, and so Mrs. Mueller-Windsor is working on rescheduling them for the 2020-2021 audit reports. So I move to pull item I-1 from the meeting agenda and then adopt the agenda as amended. Now may I have a second?
I'll second.
Much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Anyone wanting to go into executive session? All right, hearing none, seeing none, we will continue with study session, starting off with our demographer's report. But before we get started, I wanted to set up the time frame for our 2 study session presentations. We have about an hour and 45 minutes for both. We will split about 52 minutes for each presentation, splitting each presentation for 26 minutes and then 26 minutes for questions from the board. In those 26 minutes, each board member will have 5 minutes allocated time for any comments or questions. In addition, those 5 minutes include responses from staff or any of the presenters. So be mindful of your questions, and that way you can prioritize what you want to ask. I will be strict on time, and if you use up your time, you will have no more time, and you cannot reclaim your time. And that will be applied to the safety plan update presentation as well. All right, Dr. Mendoza.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, board members, executive team members present, our viewing and listening audience. Today's study session, we have 2 really exciting, in my opinion, and I think everyone would share that opinion about the information we're going to be receiving, and look forward to some of the questions. Tonight we have Rick Brammer and Don Graves to present to us. They're longtime demographers for our school district. Why don't you come up and prepare, and they're going to be presenting the latest information from their findings with enrollment and provide a demographic update for Tempe Union High School District. So thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us. President Garcia, Vice President Montero, Dr. Mendoza, it's our pleasure to be here to present the results of and members of the board. I'm sorry. That's the hardest part of the whole presentation for me, is remembering everyone's names. From there, it's just kind of downhill. So anyways, but it is our pleasure to be here tonight. We do have some interesting information I hope to share with you, just because not everybody has seen this, before. I will go through it kind of step by step. So our scope obviously involves analyzing enrollment trends, both the total enrollment, grade level distribution, and also geographic distribution, but then also alternative providers and what other the components outside of the district that the community is engaging in. And then demographic characteristics. We now have a population of nearly 300,000 people in the district. So the existing population is large, and the changes in that existing population are like way more important to us at this point than anything that might happen in terms of new construction. So we're really carefully monitoring who is in our housing units. And then Don Graves is our residential development expert. He does track all projects, basically countywide, almost statewide, single-family projects, but also multifamily projects. And of course, you've got a lot of those in the northern part of the city. And he'll bring us up to speed on what we're seeing there. And then we have 2 different models that we run. There's a macroeconomic top-down. How does Tempe Union High School District fit into the Southwest Valley, into what's going on in Arizona, sort of a top-down allocation? And then we do a second model, which is our sub-district model, which is a small area model. And in that case, we're using these red boxes you see on this map. So we're literally collecting our information and doing our modeling at this level of geography also, and that's a bottom-up model. And that's the one that's really powerful, because that's where you can just determine that this neighborhood is increasing while this one's decreasing. You look at the district numbers, you think it's, nothing's happening. So there's about 324 of these areas that we actually model. Because we've had the privilege of serving this district for a long time, we know how many TUHSD students came out of each one of those red boxes going clear back to 1994. So it gives us a real solid foundation on which to do our projections. So we'll kind of start back over, though, at the top with the trends in total enrollment. And in this case, the blue bars, well, all the data is fall head count. It's not ADM. It lines up better with my demographic data. And it's broken up. The blue bar segment of the bar is in-district enrollment, and the green segment of the bar is out-of-district enrollment. And then the red line is the year-over-year percent change based on the change in total enrollment. And so you can see that in-district enrollment peaked clear back in about 2005, 2006, 12,700 students. We're about 2,300 down from that over that period of time, which, 2,300 is a high school's worth. But on the other hand, considering, how much time has gone by, that's not really a huge loss. It's interesting, the total enrollment, though, because without a district included, didn't peak until much later, 2013, 14. And so the total has actually only declined by about 900 students since its peak. And most of that, just in the last very few years. Look at the that out-of-district component that we were talking about, where that actually did peak during the 2017-18 school year, and then it began to decline, which is something that we had been expecting, anticipating, because particularly the number of students that we have historically served out of the Maricopa community. And as they're maturing and they're building new schools and they've got a second high school coming online, more of their students are staying in their community. So that's really something that we had been expecting. And actually, the slight uptick then this year over last was more unexpected than anything else. And it's really unexpected because all the communities around us, the school-age population is not increasing. It's actually going down. So the idea that you're bringing in more means you have to be capturing more. It's not that there isn't more. So that's actually a good thing. That's actually a good testament to the school or to the district that you can continue to increase those numbers. And we have a map then that shows, the little green dots are kind of fun because it's where every student in the district lives. So these are all of your students. And we put an XY coordinate on every single one of them, and that's inside and outside of the district. And then we can see this year, for instance, we had 13,136 total students, 10,388 from within the district, the balance from outside of the district. By far the biggest, group comes from Phoenix Union and then Mesa. And then you see Maricopa coming in there, at fourth. And then you can see how that's trended over the last 4 years. And that's what I'm looking at in doing my projections. In terms of out-of-district enrollment, this is about all I can do. Because it's all a matter of choice, and all you can really do is track over time and see who's coming from where and keep building those trends forward. So overall, the out-of-district enrollment is down by about 800 students over the last 4 years. But again, a real solid component of our enrollment. Next way we look at the data is by grade grouping. And here I'm going to go K-12. I know you're 9-12, but we're going to look at the whole spectrum. If you go clear back to 2000, and if you could go back just 5 years before, you would see that the largest classes in terms of enrollment per class were K-4. Because when an area is really growing, they're bringing in young families, and that is the component of enrollment that leads. And then as soon as the rate of housing starts to fall and people begin to age in place, you can see that K-4 number has been falling, since 2000. Some of that is related to charter school enrollment, and some of it is related to demographics. But it's caused, that component of enrollment to fall steadily. The K6 or the 6-8 group has essentially been following it The most interesting thing for me was that we saw that K-4 group start to level out. You can see 17, 18, and even 19, a slight tick upward. And we've been looking for the school-age population in this district to bottom, because it's going to happen. Houses will turn over and new families will move back in. So it's dropped about 30 or 40% since its peak. So it's due to bottom out. So I really kind of thought that maybe had happened, and then along came COVID. And what happened with COVID is that in higher socioeconomic areas, the students did not come back. If you look at what happened in Glendale Elementary, 2020 was way down, 21's right back up to where it would have been, so sort of on the curve. What happened here, what happened in Chandler, what happened in Gilbert, is that people found other alternatives, and at least some of them liked them. And so it kind of caused another little, hit to the system, if you will. It was really kind of set us back down again instead of that sort of flattening out that we had been looking for. We talked about doing the sub-district stuff. So in this case, this map is color-coded by the number of students in ranges that come out of each of these planning areas. And the little number is the actual number of TUHSD students that are enrolled from each one of those areas this year. And this is the data I was saying we have going back, for quite some time. And here we're just going to look at the last 5 years, which is really kind of interesting in and of itself. And it's a little hard. You kind of have to squint a little bit and look at it. But if you look at the Tempe, McClintock, and Marcos areas, there's pretty much as much red as there is blue. Red means it's increasing. Blue means it's decreasing. Corona is starting to see a little bit of that, a little more of that mix, where you've still got some that are in decline, but some that are increasing. Whereas when you go out in the southern part of Mountain Point and out in the Desert Vista area, you're still seeing that aging of the population. So those enrollments are still declining in those neighborhoods. Whereas east of the freeway, I really think we're awfully close to the bottom. We're going to be seeing, we're seeing it kind of break even in just a whole bunch of places. The impact on our enrollment of the alternative providers. Right now there are 13 charter schools that are operating in the district. They serve about 3,400 students. That's up from about 1,800 students in 2010. They've obviously offset some of the, the increases, or at least a lot of the losses that you've experienced are from this, not from demographic changes so far. The most interesting thing to me is that if you take from about 2018, 2019 out, no change, they're coming up against the same thing you are. There just isn't that many more kids out there who need to go to high school in your area. So if there's any good news, it's that it's not continuing to go up. I think the other thing that's kind of fascinating is that in 2010, it took 19 schools, had 1,800 students, because it was mom and pop. It was storefront. It was a unique program. And now it's become corporate, big building, big business. And so now we only have 13 schools and 3 times as many enrollees. Map of where those all are. And in fact, there's about 1,250 private school students in the district as well to go with that. Sorry, I didn't bring those up sooner. But one of the interesting things is the distribution of where they are. So if you look at red dots are charter schools, green dots are private schools, blue dots are your schools. And if you can kind of, again, squint a little bit, but if you look at Baseline Road, or even better yet, maybe Elliott Road, you see that there's very few charters in the southern part of the district. What you have in the southern part of the district for competition are more private schools. So again, linked to socioeconomic status, linked to income. Northern part of the district, being around the university, I think it was naturally a hotbed for charter schools early on. And so you can see just a ton of red dots in what would be the Tempe Elementary District area. So they are fairly concentrated in the northern part, particularly the charter schools. In terms of the actual demographics of the district, I mentioned we're over 300,000, 320,000 people, according to the 2020 census. Quite a bit of growth, actually, this decade, 26,000 compared to only 1,800 in the last decade. That mainly occurred from occupying houses that were empty in 2010. Because 2010 was a bottom of our last cycle. So a lot of that has happened. What's interesting, is that you can see in both decades that we're actually losing school-aged population. If you look at the 5 to 13 is the K-8, 14 to 17 is your group. Obviously, the percentage losses in your group have been much less than in the elementary group, and that's really a testament to the fact that you've become a move-up housing market. It's expensive to live here, and so you bring in an older profile of kids. But the number of students in the school age or under 18 is really driven, which you can see has fallen from 24% to 18%, is really driven by how many households are headed by persons 35 to 44 and 45 to 54, because those are the ones that are responsible for generating the students. And you can see that that portion of the population, of the households, has fallen from 44% to 36%. So just over a third of the households currently are in that prime age generating category. We've had this happen statewide and nationally, evidenced in birth rates. This chart's a little complicated. The red line is one I'm going to talk about at all, and that's the state of Arizona average, which fell, between 2006 and 2011, the recession fell, the Great Recession, fell by 19.2% in the rate, 17% in the number of births. And you see down at the bottom of that chart, I lagged that 5 years to say, okay, when's that going to hit kindergarten? And then, it plateaued there for a few years. And we thought in economic recovery, every time in history there's been a recovery after a recession, you get an uptick in birth rates. People go out and make up for that lost time. And that didn't happen at all. We're in our 6th straight year, and in fact, I've just got the 21 data, 7th straight year of it continuing downward. And it's so extreme now, we're down a combined 33% in the birth rate. And it's so extreme that the official projections from the state demographer do not show an increase in the population under 18 in the state of Arizona through 2030. It's really a big impact. You just gotta, so everybody's working in this same environment. So population is going to continue to increase, but the number in school age categories isn't. Did I miss you? You up? Talk to us about construction activity.
As Rick mentioned, most of the changes going on in the district are not going to be a result of housing activity. What we have in this chart and the next one, the orange part of the bars is multifamily houses. And the blue part, which you can barely see here, is single family. And what we've had in the last 10 years is about 14,000 housing units, and about 90% of them have been multifamily. And the multifamily that tends to be built here in Tempe is pretty high-end stuff. I've looked at I sampled some of the more recent projects built. And for one thing, the smallest ones are studios with an average rent of around $1,500. You get a 2-bedroom apartment, it's more like $3,000. These aren't geared to families with children, they're geared to the students at ASU, which is where most of these are being built. The single family that's being built is in infill parcels, and those are scattered around all over the district. And they are going to be geared to families with children, but they're not very many and they're not very big. Go on to the next slide. This is the potential, which again, what we're showing here is also around 17,000, mostly multifamily. And it's the same type of thing. The multifamily is up in the downtown area. It's going to be high-end projects that probably aren't going to have any kids. And the single family is, again, going to be infill, scattered around all over the district, with the one exception being the Blandford property out on Pecos Road. That's going to account for about 1,050 of those single family lots that we're showing here. If you see on the this map of the potential, orange which is kind of hard to make out, would be multifamily, and the yellow or the pale yellow is single family. Some of these larger parcels that are out there in the South Mountain area, some of them have been under construction for years and will probably still be under construction for a few years, so it essentially is infill. The Pecos Road parcel with Blandford, now, like I said, that's going to be 1,050 units. The standard housing, there's going to be 3 product lines, and the standard is going to be pretty similar to Palma Brisa. It'll be that type of house. They're also going to be doing some duplexes, and there'll also be about 480 rental properties. They should be in their grading towards the end of this year, and it'll take them a while to get ready to have the houses going, so we should start seeing the house construction starting in later in 2023, and you should start seeing the kids that come out of these projects in fall of '24. But that's about the only major source of students from new house construction that you'll have will be on that Blandford property.
Turning all that into enrollment, Dawn assigns student generation rates based on the exact characteristics of each project. So you can add in 17,000 housing units and get hardly any kids out of it. So we have to stratify that. You can see we're expecting about 14,000 of those 17,000 units to get built over the next 10 years. And we translate that in, from units into households. A household is just an occupied housing unit. And then offline, it's shown here, it's also stratified by householders by age. Remember I showed you those age breakdowns? Because that's how I tell what the school age population is going to be. So in the next slide, we take that number of households, and I'm translating that into school age population first. And in your case, that's all persons aged 14 to 17 living in the district, whether they go to your school or any school at all. They're simply residents in that age group. And so if you just go to the bottom, let's say 21, 22, we're estimating 131,300 households, a school-age population of 14,756. We enroll from in the district 10,388. We saw that on one of our charts. So we know that there's 4,368 students, school-age persons who live in the district who do not attend your school, your schools. And we know there's 3,400 in charter schools, we know there's 1,200 in private schools, and it all tends to kind of add up, even though we know people can go, where they want to, with charter schools have no boundaries, but generally speaking. And you can see that last column, that service rate. And so we've fallen in the last 12 years, from about 80% down to 70%. And so the biggest unknown in our projections is what that number is going to do. Because demographically, we have a really good handle on what's going to happen. Dawn's got a really good handle on what's going to happen in terms of construction. What's going to happen, what we don't have as good a handle on is choice. And I do think that we've been conservative here. We have it falling at half the rate it has in the past, not the same. And I still wanted it to fall, but I do believe that the opportunity for charter schools to build new schools at an affordable price is gone. So we may not see as much competition in the future as we have in the last 5 or 6 years. But we want to keep our projections realistic, and so we're still building in some of that decline. But in reality, if you hold it at 70%, then enrollment could basically go flat. You could see no drop from where it is now if you could hold it at that 70%. The school-age population really isn't declining. And graphically, it kind of looks like this, where you see that extension of that chart we looked at earlier, where what the K4 group's doing, what the 5-8 group is doing, and 9-12 follows, basically. And we're still, aiming them all downward. However, we've seen back, like I said, in 1819, the K4, it kind of wants to bottom out. So I think we're being conservative, we're being practical, but it could be better than or higher than what we're projecting, more so than lower. The out-of-district component is the other wild card. So, you know, I was all ready for it to just keep going down forever, and then it went back up this year. And so we cut the rate at which we expect it to go down in the future. But again, we're just trending it out and keeping it right around 20% of total enrollment, because that's where it's been for 7 or 8 years. But that's not exactly the most scientific part of what we do either. Going into sub-district stuff, and I know we're running out of time, I apologize, but I just want to explain, you want me to? Yeah, sure. These are patterns of enrollment. And so we're just looking at where kids live versus where they go to school, because we have to adjust our enrollment numbers for that. And if you read this across, you see at Tempe High School, they have 959 of their own, plus 68 from McClintock, et cetera. So they're enrolling 1568, even though there's 1632 living in that attendance area. But when we do our projections, we have to take that into account also, because we're projecting by where kids live, but then there's a choice about where they go to school. The good news is that those patterns, reside patterns, stay fairly stable over time, unless you do some major boundary change. So we've got that wired in pretty well, which allows us to then take our attendance area projections, which is where kids live, and then translate them into school projections. That's why there's 2 tables, and that's really all I'm going to say about that. Is I want you to recognize that in the report. They look like the same table, but one is by where they live and one is by where they go to school. So what are we talking about here? The district enrollment has been, at least in district, has been declining slightly, and we basically expect it to continue. The K-8 declines are what's, obviously the foreshadowing all of this, which are stemming from not only these historically low birth rates, lowest in Arizona history, by the way, but also what's happened with the expansion of charter schools, at least up until recently. However, housing turnover rates are increasing, especially east of east of I-10. So we are looking for those neighborhoods to sort of bottom out and stabilize. Don spoke about single-family potential being real limited. We do have the one parcel out on Pecos, probably going to give us a couple, 300 students, about the time that those many age out from over there anyway. So I don't expect much to really happen with, with the enrollment at that school as a result of it. And it'll take a while for those kids to get to high school anyway. And I just don't know that there's anything that, that there's enough evidence that enrollment could increase. I've been looking at an optimistic case where it stays stable, and maybe a more likely case that it continues to drop slightly. So, thank you very much, and we'll take questions.
Thank you so much. All right, board members. All right, Member Hodge, you're up.
I have 2 quick questions. First off, thank you. Always great to see your presentation. The 202, is that going to add into it? I know that because we go out further, have you added that into our demographics of out-of-state, out-of-district students?
Yeah, we've actually been.
Like Tolleson and, Levine?
Levine, yeah, I actually have been watching that very closely. We got a slight uptick this year, but not really enough to make a huge difference, but it's definitely a factor.
Okay. And one last question is, when kind of rumored that maybe Phoenix Union may be thinking about another school, how you think that would affect us in the future? Because it's kind of, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that they might be thinking about building another school. It's not a traditional school.
I was going to say,
Yeah, it's not a traditional,
I know that
but
they don't have
no, not a traditional, but another school.
a full-service high school.
No, not a
and-
full service, but do you think that could affect us? Because
Sure.
it's not going to be too far from us.
Sure, and that's the idea, is everybody's trying to build a better mousetrap.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, who's next? All right, Member Barraza.
Thank you for the presentation. I always appreciate the work. It's a lot of information, and the district, we always talk about it. We use your information constantly. I'm on the Employee
Thank you.
Benefit Trust, and that's a big part of where we're at, looking in terms of, insurance costs and so forth. That's a
Great.
component. So thank you, again. How do you look at so you hit on the housing market and the price increase, and you mentioned that you're seeing less and less of the single family, more of the kind of catering towards maybe the college student that's getting a location. Do you see that trend heading south? into our southern district area, because it was kind of settled into the Tempe area. I'm just more or less wondering how that component is working with industries, like what's coming into our district in terms of business and what that promotes and what that encourages, the type of
Right.
demographics.
I think that the jobs, I've seen since Intel opened, talk about a revolution. I mean, it really changed the entire area here. We brought in all those engineers and all of that income. So I think that we've seen a lot of that already. However, you're almost fully developed. The properties are aging. I don't know that, the employment impacts are going to be that big. I'm definitely worried about affordability with interest rates and prices.
I got to tell you exactly, that's the situation where I live. In my complex, it's a lot of mid-20 to early 30 tech industry. There are a lot of income.
Yeah.
Their apartments are empty because they're still too young to furnish. They have their gaming set up and so forth. So I'm seeing that. I'm not going to tell you how much I pay because it will shock everyone for my single bedroom home, but I understand, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, who's next? Vice President Montero.
First of all, I'll echo the thanks for the presentation. It's always great to have this detailed information. It's a lot of information to
It
take
is a
in.
lot,
So
I'm sorry about that.
thank you. I only had one quick question on slide 22 when we're talking about the cross-flow of our students between schools. You can see there's quite a large discrepancy between some of our schools here. We're looking at Tempe High at 58.8%, Desert Vista 91%, McClintock 81%. Do you think, what are some of those variables that might play into why we're seeing some of the different levels across our schools there?
Well, a lot of times it's program driven. So it doesn't have anything to do really with the quality of the reputation or whatever of the school. It's just a particular program. I think Tempe's done a good job at catering to its population. And, they bring in almost as many as they lose. And that hasn't always been the case. They used to lose a lot more than they brought in. I think the district has done a good job at putting things there to stabilize the enrollment in that school.
Thank you.
But yes, I do look at it, especially in elementaries, where I got 30 of those across the bottom of a page, and you start to see the ones that are, why is that one so low? And it may be that they don't have a this or they do have a that. But it's good for administration to at least know why. Different.
All right, I'll go next. So looking at the alternative school or providers, by far the largest is Student Choice Online. And as you know, we have our own online programming as well. Do you have, data or information that could suggest the correlation between why, choosing that in particular online versus ours, or as to why they're going and choosing that particular one? Because it is, it's $1,300 or $1,385 at this point.
I wish I did. We filed a couple of different requests for information, from the state to try to figure out where your students are going and, try to do some more research in that area. So far, the SACE system hasn't been able to run backwards. So, but we're still hoping to get some of that information down the line. But at this point, I honestly don't know.
And are those students part-time or full-time? Do you have any indication?
I think the vast majority of those are full-time.
Thank you. Member James?
Okay, this might not be a question that you have access to the answer because it's kind of maybe out of your scope, but in your experience, when you're seeing districts that have faced declining enrollment, or maybe even seeing districts that have increased, which is kind of what we would like to see, at least stabilize, increase our enrollment, do you have examples of things that districts do, trends that you see where they have been able to stabilize or increase enrollment, like actions that districts take that have been productive in that way?
Sadly enough, I think they've all helped everyone, with the traditional schools and all the efforts that have been made. I think it has helped, but it hasn't stemmed the tide. I only know of 2 districts that we work for out of 25 that have a percentage rate that's going up. And one of those is Maricopa, and that's just because they're finally getting their own students back. So unfortunately, the number of educational alternatives, not just charter schools, but now we've had pods and we've had a resurgence in online and so on and so forth, that just doesn't add up.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Member James. It looks like y'all still have some additional time if you want to ask another question. Member Braza?
Politics is always an issue in terms of how people respond to various things, whether it's taxes or jobs or where they buy a house. Do you see any forecasting in that being influential, or, just looking at it as it's one of those things I know you guys pay attention to in some respect, and I know that the human geography, layout does fluctuate with industry, with classrooms, with legislative action. Do you see anything like that in terms of your research, or is this is just a shiftment of people and the population, right, aging and what is coming in? Ultimately, that's what it is.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I try not to focus, I try not to deal with politics at all. I try to just deal with people.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Board members, any additional questions? Dr. Mandeville?
I think if because you answered, you think they're they're full-time students, and we just had a discussion in the executive team this morning around our own online program, Tempe Union Online, and we have more students enrolling, but we know who are part-time folks and why, and then our full-time and why. And I've actually driven past that, and I'm looking and I'm asking questions about some of the online providers out there. And I have a couple of folks that I know directly work with some of these online providers, and their rigor isn't anything like ours. So I think, and I'm not trying to speak disparagingly about another one, online organizations, but I just know that what I am hearing, that the rigor isn't anywhere close to what we're providing our students. So from that angle, I want to look more at what we can do here, not to reduce rigor, but to promote the fact that if you're going to come to our online program at Tempe Union Online, you're going to get a quality education, even though it's still online, because they will.
I'm
Not
sure
a
your
question, but a
graduation
thought.
rates probably reflect that as well.
I hope so, yes.
All right, well, is that everything that we would like to? All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here tonight and
Thank you for the
present and answer our
privilege.
questions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.
All right, next we will transition straight into our school safety plan update. Dr. Mandeville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, board members, executive team members, again, viewing and listening audience. Welcome, Mr. McDonald. He will be organizing this update on the school safety plan for our district. And I know we have a lot of information to share, so I'm just going to pass it on to you.
Thank you. I told Mr. Brammer, thank you for the extra time as well. Good evening, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, board members, Dr. Mandeville, executive team, and guests here and virtually. Tonight, we're going to provide with you one of the first of 5 updates that we'll do. And hopefully we may be able to finish that work, but right now we're looking at 5 updates throughout the next year. We wanted to also say thank you for allowing us to go through this process. We believe that we do have a good safety program, but this process will allow us to have the best safety program and even a model school safety program for others to view and utilize. And so once again, we believe that we're going to lead the pack when it comes to our school safety plans. The overview will be as such. We'll look at, again, wonderful opportunity with the resolution that came in November of 2021. We'll talk a little bit about the purpose, the why. Define school safety was one of those pieces that we will do, and we started with the students. We talked about MTSS quite a bit, and what's that connection to MTSS, and there's a large one. Determine the measures for success, and that's our data and evaluation piece. That's so very important. What are the categories of a school safety plan? What have we do so far with the research that we've done with our school safety plans? Timeline, some cautionary considerations, and then questions that you'll be allowed to do at the end. So why do we want to invest in school safety? We need to have a well-executed comprehensive school safety plan. This will assure that students and staff and parents are safe at school. It will ensure academic programming that runs smoothly. It will provide positive school climate. It will help schools be prepared in case of emergencies. It will support diversity, equity, and inclusion. It will promote all social supports and emotional learning. And then it will allow partnerships and community stakeholders as well. Now, all of these touch on the core values and beliefs of Tempe Union High School District, and that's the important piece of this as well. So why does Tempe Union need a comprehensive school safety plan? The following elements I think are going to be important, and that if these are in place, there's going to be a positive connection to adults and to their peers, and that's going to be important. Because once they feel that they're safe at school, then they can learn and do what they need to be here for. We will make sure that we're data informed, making those decision-making ideas. Evidence-based prevention efforts, appropriate interventions are occurring, response protocols are happening, and there's a commitment to continuous quality improvement. This positive connection more than likely will create success, them to feel safe, and them to be able to report when necessary. And I think that's a big piece as well, as students feel comfortable and trusting their environment and trusting the adults on campus. So who should be involved with school safety planning? The comprehensive school plan should include a broad range of people. These stakeholders are school administrators, who happen to be here tonight, thank you very much, certified staff members, classified staff members, of course our mental health professionals, nurses, law enforcement, and that's or school resource officers, and to what extent will continue to be studied throughout this as well. And then, of course, students, our parents, and then, of course, our community members as well. We have great partners, and they're essential to the process of school safety. So defining school safety. So what does a safe school climate mean to the school community? These are some of the questions that we're going to be asking very first meeting to our ad hoc committee. What should safety look like? How should it be achieved? And for whom is it a priority? Elements of school safety, of course, in the area of school safety, we will look at working with Dr. Moon and our team, this equity work reflecting in the current school safety plan of students and families and educators and all staff. We have to look at equity work that recognizes students' individual identities. That's going to be very important. Also, that aligns to this ongoing continuous improvement. Some of those things might be school discipline, looking at what that looks like, working through the restorative practices. And then, of course, use of disaggregated data to understand the effectiveness of a plan. And this is something that we don't do as well as we need to right now. And that's through this last couple of months, we looked at ours, looked at other pieces, and realized that we need to look at our data, be able to utilize that data, and make changes based on that data. Some other safe school planning priorities. Again, ongoing evidence-based equity, diversity, and inclusion training around school safety. We want to seek to create a safe and supportive school environment that's student-centered for all students. We want to strive for equitable disciplinary practices. We want school-wide evidence-based equity framework that looks at the unique school cultures and climates and context of each of our schools and be able to promote and protect the physical and psychological safety of all, including our staff members. Some other priorities. We want to be able to outline the roles, responsibility of key school personnel for our principals to understand, counselors, our psychologists, our nurse, our security guards. Everyone must be responsible for school safety. We also have to look at the oversight of these committees, whose purpose will be to assist and evaluate our conduct, our disciplinary matrix, and we also want to be able to get students involved, and many of you mentioned student court and whatnot. And of course, consideration of intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, incentive for staff members to engage in school safety. We know that some of our staff members don't feel comfortable in engaging with that, but we know that school safety is a big part of the classroom management piece, and we'll have to also get back to that. So in defining school safety, we actually went out to the students first. And Dr. Mendeville's SAC team, we met on March 29th and again yesterday. And we talked about, what does school safety mean to you? And the kids get it. I'd like to report that. They wanted to talk about relationships and trusting staff members, boundaries. They need boundaries and respect and structure and consistency. Talked about reassurance, feeling that it's okay to be vulnerable and be able to have those resources to go back to. They talked about mental and social, emotional, healthy environments and the importance of that. And they also talked about safety protocols, being prepared, doing real drills, feeling like it's not a drill, making sure that's important to them. And they want to be able to do that for the other students that may not feel that way. And I thought that was very interesting. And Mrs. Danson's class over at Desert Vista, Criminal Justice 3-4, they went ahead and did a project, and we used that project. And it was about school safety and some other things. And my team, we're going to go over there and talk to that group early May and talk to them a little bit more about this school safety idea. And they talked about students being on safety committees, their role. They also talked about social emotional health resources, knowing the resources, where to go to. And they talked about staff professional development, which I thought was brilliant as well. And then, of course, do some student focus groups on this. Tell us what it is that, we're going to ask you questions. You're going to really tell us what it's like for a student in Tempe Union High School district and site. So how will we know if we're successful? And so essentially, we need to create a mechanism for feedback. And I said, this is not one of our strengths right now. This is something that's going to be very important to ensure that school safety plans that are connected to the programs that we currently have, whether it be the SRO safety, whether it be the PBIS programs, whether it be MTSS. We need a complete perception surveys for all stakeholders. We need to complete focus groups, again, for our staff members, for our students, for our parents, for the community. Some of our businesses, how do they feel about our safety plans? And then we need to monitor the data over time as well. And pivot to what that data tells us. That's going to be the important part. Not just collect the data, but able to move with that data and make the changes. So continued implementation and multi-tiered systems of support. These MTSS, the most effective way, and I think this is important, that we were able to implement the school safety teams, the safety plan, and student learning all must happen through the MTSS. We need to make sure that prevention and wellness is promoted. We need to make sure that universal screenings are done. We must implement evidence-based interventions. We must monitor ongoing student progress. and we must engage in systematic database decision-making. Effective MTS requires adequate access to school employees, specialized instruction support personnel, these warm handoff people, and also to community-based services. We need to make the connection to the outside sources to make sure that our students are not only getting what they have inside of our buildings, but outside as well. We need to collaborate and integrate these services as well as integrate school-based community services. We must adequately have time for staff to plan and problem solve these things. Effective collection, evaluation, interpretation, and use of this data is going to be important. And then also we need the patience, the commitment, and the strong leadership that we have here today to continue the process of this MTS supports as it pertains to school safety. Continued implementation of the MTSS. This is an approach to integrate school safety and crisis management into MTSS. This is called the MFAT model. MFAT stands for multi-phase, multi-hazard, multi-agency, and multi-tiered. And you'll see here, this is a visual of what that looks like. Your 4 phases being mitigation and prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. Of course, you have the multi-hazard planning that we need to be prepared for anything. We also have the multi-agencies support, and we do very well with those groups, but we have to make sure we know their roles and what it is that they do without extending over or not doing enough. And then also you'll notice the tier that you saw in our social emotional wellness presentation. That's the MTSS tier. Of course, each of your schools currently have a school safety assessment and prevention team. That's part of the grant, the SSAPT team. This is the first step to establish and maintaining a safe school. This team facilitates communication and ensures there's a consistency in school safety planning and implementation. They have established metrics as well. So they may be looking at their discipline or their conduct of their students. They may notice that we have an aggression issue with our Hispanic males. What are we going to do to help that group out? So they're looking at data. They're meeting monthly after they have a drill to discuss this. They look at 3 categories of engagement, safety, and environment. And through this, the SSAP team works through an operation plan. And that allows us to have accountability for everybody towards that process. As we talked about the 3 categories just a moment ago, this is the category and the supporting determinants. Engagement talks about exactly what Dr. Mendeville talks about all the time. It's the culture, it's the relationships, it's the respect for diversity, it's school participation. The safety piece talks about social, emotional safety, physical safety, and also substance abuse. And then also the environment, we talk about physical environment, wellness, and disciplinary environment as well. Some of the data, we talked about monitoring already, and we talked about the SSAPT. But this data at a minimum should look at the Arizona Youth Risk Behavior Survey that's given biannually, given to our principals. We would like to actually work with them, work with Dr. Alexi as well, start tearing apart that data, looking at it site-wise and district-wide. We look at evidence-based climate surveys. We're going to be able to have that through Panorama as well. We're looking forward to that. And then discipline reports and breaking the incidence of reports by all of those categories, by type, severity, time, grade level. And then review data, of course, is going to be very important. Student conduct violations. We want to look for patterns of disparities against any type of minority student or students with disabilities. Some other data sources, as you can see, all going to be very important to look at. So we've been researching school safety plans, Dr. Moon, Charles Cobbs, myself, Eric Lauer, Ron Denny, and currently 33 states have statutes that specifically require every school or school district to have a comprehensive school safety plan or emergency plan. I am thankful Arizona is one of those. And then also we've been looking at international plans as well, because there's a lot that are going on in other countries that we can learn from. So our timeline is as follows. Weekly, we've been meeting since the beginning of your resolution with Dr. Moon, Mr. Cobb, myself, Mr. Denny. Continue review of the process of that resolution. We want to make sure that we're discussing each part of those. Gather school safety plans. We are constructing the ad hoc committee with an equity lens, and we're conducting student focus groups. We have email requests for participation and interest in the ad hoc. They were due on Monday, April 18th. And as of Monday, we had 111 people interested in the school safety plan. And that only includes parents, classified, certified administrators, and students. Our community members got another one, that's another 35. So we have to kind of go through that. Dr. Moon and the team, we're going through, try to bring that number down to a little bit more manageable based on that equity lens that was asked for in the resolution. However, the committee will still be pretty large. We're still thinking 50 to 60. Doesn't mean that everybody will show up, but we think with that group, we could definitely answer the questions and make this model school safety program the best it can be. And timeline continued. The first ad hoc committee meeting will be the first week of May, and we'll go ahead and we're going to give them some homework, some of the school safety programs that we have been looking at already, several of them. We're going to discuss the purpose, look at goals, process, and timeline. The ad hoc team will meet monthly, and in between that, we'll have homework because there's a lot of work to do and a lot of information that they'll have to read through. And then we'll be starting that August of 2022. As I spoke earlier, we'll have 4 more updates for you quarterly as prescribed by the resolution, one in October, January, March, and either May or June. And then upon approval, we'll be doing the implementation of the new safety plan for the 23-24 school year. There were a few in our research cautionary considerations when doing a school safety plan. And so the use of an evidence-based intervention that most appropriately and culturally sensitive to the unique student population and families, we need to make sure that we're having that and that it's secured in our plan. Sustainable change takes time to both improve acceptable plans and also to do full implementation of these plans. And sometimes efforts should not be abandoned, most times, just because there's a discomfort of the new plan. We have to work through the new plan. There will be some discomfort in the new plan, and that's okay for our staff and our students even to feel it and work through it. And that's where the PD and things come along as well. And then lastly, sufficient time is needed to build consensus on this vision. And we're pleased that we do have the year to do that so we can give you a quality product as well. And then to ensure to our parents and our stakeholders, our staff and our students that we have the right safety plan in place. So at this time, I saw him say, wow, look at that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Ask for
Mr. Mendel.
questions.
I even gave you 2 extra minutes, I was telling Dr. Mendeville.
I have my timer on, and I practiced a few times too. So.
All right, board members. All right, member James, followed by member Braza.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. McDonald, for the update. It seems like the resolution was a million years ago and it was very tumultuous, but I feel like this presentation really shows that as a district and a community, we came to something that is going to be really productive and is really exciting to see come to fruition. And so with that, I do have a few questions and I will pick and choose and be really good on time, I promise, President Garcia. But I really appreciate, I think it was slide 7, the engagement aspect, where we're talking about, and I think it's kind of all throughout the safety presentation, which is really excellent. We're looking at student-based cultures and climates. And President Garcia and I have had conversations about, and this is all him. I'm not taking any credit for this, but the idea of fighting for a dream instead of fighting against a nightmare, or working toward a dream. And I feel like this idea of engagement and creating these environments for our students, which I know we're doing in our district at each of our schools, and being sensitive to our communities, is how we build those dreams. And I actually just heard a podcast, and it was about a school in England, and the majority of the population of the school, they were Pakistani, practicing Islam, and the graduation rate was about 4%. And when they turned around the climate and culture of the school and they made it representative of the students, it took about 10, 15 years. The graduation rate went up to 72%. Right. And if we think about what were the kids doing that weren't graduating, weren't being successful in school, they're going to have issues, they're going to have problems, it's not a safe environment. And that was just proof that that concept of working toward that dream is really what we should be doing. So this is really wonderful to see that integrated throughout. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for that. And I look forward to seeing how we're going to work with each school and those climate and cultures to build those dreams, to work for that representation at all levels in our schools. And then my question for you is about the data and how we're going to be using the data dashboard in kind of categorizing the data we're gathering. We had conversations during in the fall about how our data doesn't necessarily translate to 88E's website and their data. So how we are going to categorize, code, and report that data so we don't have those gaps, because we right now cannot look really to ADE's website where we see, say, like arrest rates or referrals to law enforcement. Right. We don't see accurate data there. And so it's really not accessible. We don't have anything accessible to our public or to us to see what that accurately is. So how are we going to be utilizing that data dashboard? And how are we going to make sure that that coding is going to ADE so we have it represented transparently for our public?
Two different questions, right? So the first question is we have to make sure that we're putting the data in correctly the first time. And that goes into synergy. And from that synergy update, with making sure that we're going through the pieces of the new plan, meaning what data do we need, what bullet points are we looking for, those are the things that we can download in there and then upload into the data dashboard. The problem is a disconnect of what the AD is looking for at this point, because they only look for certain things. And we actually have put an asterisk by those things in our district metrics, or matrix, I'm sorry. But the problem is what we're going to have to work with AD and say, these are the pieces that we want to show. So then when parents look at that, it's reflective of what we're really doing. Especially with all the work with the culture and the changes of that. But we're going to have to work on that a little bit. There is a disconnect with that.
Thank you so much, Member James. Member Raza.
Great presentation, first off. Thank you. I sat with you and David Huffine in your office, and we talked a lot about school safety, and I was very happy to hear the mindset, and the conversation, I think, was almost 2 hours. It was very enjoyable, and I'm going to be reaching out with my questions at that time, as well
no problem at all.
Be always engaged in this, so I appreciate that. One of the aspects also, too, that I want the committee to look into in terms of the disciplinary aspect is, last year, I really pushed hard, in conversations with you guys, too, for a development of a due process rights in a situation in which a student is aware of it when they come into our district and by the handbook, but it's always good practice, I think, to reiterate what our practices are to the students. not necessarily to be adversarial, but for the sake of saying as our school safety plans change, as disciplinary is more innovative and moving
Restorative.
forward, I think it's an aspect of communication and also reassuring the student that, we're considering, the conversation with you and, here's what we want you to know. So I appreciate that, and if you guys can look into that modification to create a good document, so that way it is clear, concise for students as part of this project. I'm just really going to give feedback more than questions, and I'll be quick. So also the aspect of what I really appreciate on this presentation is it's been, you and your team have constantly heard me advocating for evaluation systems of our SRO programs, of different programs in terms of school safety. And the reason for that is I think, it helps to just sharpen the saw consistently how we approach school safety. And it's just something that I really appreciate seeing in this presentation and having a backbone in it. How do we evaluate? How do we look at our successes? So thank you for that. Looking at student court, I mentioned that in the past with Michelle Hirsch and Guadalupe Teen Court. I think that if we can get in high school, one of our high schools, to pilot something, in a very foundational way so we can grow it, but not like run and throw something at it that's already completed and it gets, I want it to be built for success. I think it's such an innovative approach, and if we can look at maybe that, brainstorming that aspect, it'd be appreciated by me. One thing that I also really learned a lot about from a few advocates in terms of social emotional wellness and counselors was eating disorders and how prevalent they are in our district and how daunting it can be for an individual's self-esteem, well-being, physical health, ability to make friends, ability to, a lot of things focus on the educational aspect. My mind was blown from what I've learned and how difficult. I have a friend, that I constantly talk to, and she has a hard time just eating, like in period. When she cooks, it's very much a very tough thing for her to do. And when she goes to events and there's food, it's very much a difficult situation. It's constantly on her life. And she always says she's always in recovery, and she won't get out of that because she always has to be mindful of it. And it really just opened my eyes. So if we can look into, while we're looking at all the aspects of social emotional eating disorders and other disorders that maybe we're not so prevalent to, but I did learn that in the high school district, I promise if we look into it, we're going to be very shocked by the amount of students that may come forward and say, I need help, in that. And I'd like to see resources for that, because I'm not sure if any students really know how other than to go to their counselor. But if our counselors, do they know, or is that part of training and so forth? So eating disorders would be, it'd be very appreciated by me on that aspect too. The only other aspect I just want to say is if we can, I talked to Dr. Mendenville, and thank you for the disciplinary reports and the inclusion of IEPs as an identifier for disciplinary reports. I think it's just another aspect of what we can look at in terms of is there an issue? Is there unconscious bias in terms of the ability, or how does that disciplinary situation differ from other students that aren't on an IEP? And if there's a increase in how we move into a direction over the other. So I really appreciate that, and I'll reach out to you regarding any questions. I'm going to keep reaching out. We got a lot to talk about. I'm not going to take a lot of time here, but those are my thoughts on moving forward. And if you have a response, please, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I'll set up a meeting with you.
These are all very good. In fact, we were talking about eating disorders just the other day, and again, some of these things are symptoms of a larger piece of social emotional wellness. So we'll look into these, and I'd be happy to sit down with you and spend some more time, quality time, and conversation.
Thank you so much. Member Hodge.
Thank you. First off, as all my other board members, phenomenal job on the presentation. Want to thank all my principals for being here again this day, and for all that you guys do when it comes to each campus, because each campus is unique. So thank you guys for everything. My question is, I'm focused more on if we started maybe younger in the elementary, how could we encompass having our safety plan brought into the elementaries. Maybe we can share it or some kind of focus group. So the earlier they learn, the longer it just brings into them. It's like a branding. So I was just wondering, is there any way that we can encompass our elementary districts into our plans when it comes to our focus groups and what's going on with our student-focused process?
Dr. Moon and I had a conversation about this as well, and what you're going to see from all of our groups, and first of all these things overlap, right? Social
Yes.
emotional wellness, diversity and inclusion, safety and secure schools. That we're going to work, and Mr. Cobb's working with his co-partners at Kyrene and Tempe right now. Same with Ron Denny. We're going to pull all these back in. I think focus groups, just as Kyrene did with our SAC group, might be a good opportunity to be able to do that. And I think it's a great idea. Thank you for giving it to us.
No, you're very welcome, and you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Member Hodge. Vice President Montero.
First of all, thank you again for the presentation. I'm really looking forward to what's going to come out of these conversations with the committee. I really appreciate, having this opportunity, like you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, to have this holistic view of school safety. And the first step is to define what that means and engaging our students and our community partners and our families and teachers, et cetera, to get an idea of what that means, because I think that's step one in, moving forward. And I think, the students hit it on the nail when you're talking about some of the feedback we got when we're looking especially at having the trusting relationships with the staff on campus, when we're looking at social-emotional resources. These are all things that play into part when we're talking about prevention. And so one question that I had, and I had quite a few other questions, but I know that's the job of the committee, and so I appreciate kind of the framing of how this is going to, what's going to happen in the future. So I'll follow up with you on that in the future. But I think, the last time we had, when we were on our social emotional presentation, we're spending a lot of time talking about the postvention piece. And so I was curious if that's something that's kind of considered in this context of school safety, is in the event that something does happen, what does that delineated process look like when it comes to communication, when it comes to who's involved and any discussions afterwards, et cetera?
But very similar in that MFAT process, part of the phases of that is exactly that. And so we'll have to do postvention. Say we have a certain hazard that occurred or a certain issue. We will use the same process of the social emotional wellness. Different people may be involved, but again, same process to make sure that the communication is going out, that it's smooth, that we're following all those pieces. It's not yet defined yet. Our MFAT process is not in, the process is there, but it's not what we're going to do here in Tempe Union yet. That will be work that the committee will do, but thank you for that, and we'll continue with that process.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to, this is, a very similar process to what we did with the ad hoc committee with mental health, and we've seen kind of what came out of that committee. I mean, those conversations were so enlightening, so
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Montero. So I have, I guess, kind of an ask, because looking at the comprehensive school plan for kind of the broad range of stakeholders, I'm really excited to see, obviously a whole host of different stakeholders, but my ask is relating to kind of expanding parents' category into families. I know I harp on this across the board.
Yes, of course. My apologies for that.
No, you're good, you're good. And also, when, and I know that this is difficult because of just kind of where we are in trying to meet our families where they are, but incorporating linguistic needs, because I don't want us to overlook those families who aren't traditionally included in these conversations. One of the things that I really took an effort in when I first ran back in 2012 was knocking on the doors of the families that don't necessarily speak English, right? And making them feel like they're part of this district too. And so I had learned a lot of their own experiences aside from my own, that helped kind of guide my own, governance priorities as well. And so I know y'all are working on kind of a larger outreach for all of our families, and specifically for families that have linguistic needs, but kind of expanding on that and really driving home that part of the stakeholder engagement process, because I really want to be mindful of them and their thoughts, because oftentimes, as we know, they're not in the room, and we're making decisions for them as well. So,
Thank you. That's an outstanding suggestion.
thank you so much. All right, board members, we do have additional time. If anyone wants to add or ask another question. Member Braza?
One last thing that I forgot to mention is when I sat with David and you, we talked about intramural sports as a social emotional component of well-being, physical fitness, team building, in building that culture. If we can look at that as a point of part of that component, again, I was that student that teen parent didn't have time to go baseball and practice every day after school. And so, the commitments for extracurriculars were just not really available to me as much as I'd love to do it. So having access to being able to play, flag football, which he talked about that we're introducing into Tempe Union, and I believe it's, was it Desert Vista, I believe, that started, and he's looking to try and build off of that. And I think that's wonderful. I also want to make sure that we're also conscientious about inclusiveness and ensuring that our students, that our SPED students are also given opportunities to engage in sports, engage in crafts, engage in, art projects. That I think having those abilities to be able to work on that after class will also engage students to stay in the school a lot longer, which we know that as a component. As for me, that was always one of those, what they say, idle hands are devil's playground, so being able to stay on campus longer, I think has a benefit. But if we can open up resources for athletics, arts, music, podcast studios for students to be able to express themselves. I know I keep mentioning podcast studios and the Innovative Academy and our libraries, but I think it's such an important way for students to be able to communicate to each other and be honest with each other. Now, I don't think we'll be able to post them on our district website, because I imagine they're going to be having some very strong conversations, but having the ability for them to take that and take it home with them and having those conversations on student, I think it's, to me, the 21st century breakfast club model of having those, that athlete, that student, that's the honor student, that trouble student. I think we're going to get a lot of that communication and people understanding. The way we experience with Challenge Day, and we see how students are saying, I see that student all the time, I just never knew they were dealing with this, and then they start talking, and it's just wonderful. And so that's why I always push the podcast up. In other words, the ability to communicate consistently, not just in a committee, or on the field, but the ability to be able to say, I want to record your story, I have this, weekly podcast I do. So those are the two things, also in social emotional wellness and student safety. I think building a community makes us safer, where students engage each other, and we know how hard it has been this whole year coming back, with a lot of the social emotional wellness and disciplinary issues, aggression, and so forth. So I'd like to see a component that encourages students to continue to communicate. And so that's the last thing. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Those are the only things I want to see if we can brainstorm in the committees as well.
I think that's a great idea. The district needs to look at school safety as everybody's part. And I think once the ad hoc committee completes their work, just like we did with the social emotional wellness ad hoc committee, we're going to have a regular committee for school safety as well. This will have to be a continuation that we can start discussing, making sure that we do have all of the stakeholders' voices and be able to talk about where do we want to continue to go. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we have another question from Member James.
Yes, very quickly, on slide 22, when we're talking about being culturally sensitive to unique student populations and families, I just want to double check that we're talking about also being sensitive to our LGBTQ plus communities as well, because just talking with friends and people who are trans and their interactions sometimes with law enforcement or medical professionals, and how that can be traumatic, that we have adequate training for our staff and any departments that we work with, so that we're sensitive to their needs as well.
You must have read my presentation that I just wrote that on.
Right.
There is
I mean, I know, that's why I-
There's a school to prison pipeline for our marginalized groups, including our LGBT. We need to look at all marginalized groups when it comes to this, very much so. And really, we get to the point where all students, all staff, showing people dignity. Again, I go back to that. Everybody has worth and value, and if the district can continue to work on that piece, we'll be very, very successful.
Absolutely. And I know that you are, absolutely, if anyone's on top of it, you are. Just wanted to emphasize that that was
Oh, it's-
a subgroup that is included in that.
Yeah, it's an excellent point.
Thank you so much, Member James. Member Hodge?
All I want to say is that Mr. McDonald and Burdetta are working on bringing Challenge Day back from the city of Tempe, because we have the budget for it. So we're going to be bringing Challenge Day back. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Medeville, any thoughts, comments, or questions?
No, I want to recognize Mr. McDonald and for the rest of the team members that have contributed to this. What, for me, as superintendent, and after the resolution was passed and this has shed the proper light, I guess, and the lens for work that I believe we were doing anyway, but it just intensified and showed us where we've done some really good things, but we're areas where we need to do better.
Correct.
And so that's been a good thing for all of us, because to Mr. McDonald, soon to be Dr. McDonald, it's going to make us a better organization. And we're always proponents of making our system better for the students that come to us and for the employees who work, as we all work on behalf of better, improve student outcomes at all levels. So I just think it just improves our entire organization and the culture that we have. And there's a lot of overlap with the work and the priorities and our core values, all of that, which is kind of
It's all coming
neat.
together, and it's
just
kind of
coming
very neat.
together. So
Yes.
it is time consuming, it's intensive at times, but it's so rich with the discussion and what we learn. And I'm just always so impressed with our kids, our students. I mean, they are just remarkable. So we're going to keep on including their input and getting even a broader input from our students at all 6 sites. So I just want to say kudos to the work that you're doing, Mr. McDonald.
Thank
And
you.
everybody else, executive team
Oh,
members,
yes.
principals, thank you for being
Takes
here.
everybody.
I know. Thank you so much, Mr. McDonald. I know as board members we can be, we can put folks through the ringer, but you have shown immense grace and professionalism and grace to us as well in terms of how much rigor and the level of expectation that we all kind of share and try to work towards. But definitely appreciate all of your effort and time. I know it's a lot of information, and also I know I'm stricter with time, and I'm impressed that we were all able to, get through the presentation and through questions. But I really appreciate your efforts and the teams as well, because I know, as Dr. Medeville said, this is very intensive, and it shows that there's a lot of thought and meaningful efforts behind it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, having said that, we will reconvene at 7 o'clock for the regular meeting. Thank you, everyone. All right, the time is now 7:00 p.m., reconvening the meeting. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see the boardroom full again. It's very exciting. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Member Hodge, followed by a moment of silence, and then a Latin acknowledgement by Dr. Mandeville. If we can please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Tempe Union High School District acknowledges that our community of schools is located on the ancestral lands of the Akmal and Peepash indigenous peoples who have inhabited these lands since time immemorial. With this land acknowledgement, the district formally recognizes that the traditional care and keeping of these lands by indigenous peoples allows us to be here today.
All right, thank you so much, Member Hodge and Dr. Mandeville. We will continue on with the agenda with a report from Superintendent, starting with Teacher Art. Dr. Mandeville.
Thank you, President Garcia and Vice President Montero and board members, executive team members, and most importantly, everyone sitting in this room. It is, to your point, President Garcia, so thrilling to see this boardroom filled with our students and teachers and family members, because we've not had that luxury and that opportunity for quite some time. So it's wonderful to have this room filled with all this talent and love, and so I appreciate that. Also to our viewing and listening audience. I want to start off with my report because there's a lot of things to celebrate, and that's one of the good things that I get to do in this report, is to share the good things that our students have accomplished and our teachers have accomplished. And for the next several months, you will notice, some of you who've been in our district offices, that there's beautiful artwork throughout our hallways and in this building. It's not that we bought this artwork and we're hanging out because we have lots of money. No, we are, this is because we have outstanding students and teachers who contribute their artwork to grace these walls, actually. So for the next several months, we will be showcasing the work of our Tempe Union art teachers. Many pieces are for sale, with some of the proceeds donated to the Education Foundation. So anyone interested in making a purchase, and I will be doing that too, so should contact Diane Welling. Diane, are you in the room? No, she's not, okay. So please, if you're in the area and truly want to look at some incredible pieces of art, stop by, because they're a steal, because they're truly fantastic. Our next is the staff recognition. We have outstanding educators in this school district, and we have equally as outstanding students. The Tempe Union High School District employees will be recognized at the annual Tempe Diablos Excellence in Education Awards event on May 3rd at the Tempe Center for the Arts. I think the past 2 years they've had to be done virtually, which doesn't give the same level of attention and specialness to that event to honor our teachers. There's a number of categories, and I'm going to say out loud these categories, but also our teachers that have been nominated for the Tempe Diablo Awards. For Class Act, from Corona, Jaylee Doris, and from Tempe High, Anthony Todd Bayo. So if you're in the room or if you're at home watching this, congratulations that you're being nominated. For Inspiration, Jill Stewart from Mountain Point, Amy Quinn from Tempe High, Rising Star, Logan Adam from Mountain Point, Jamie Schultz from Corona, High Impact, Lori Warnock from Mountain Point, and Kathleen Pugh from McClintock. Lifetime, David Morton, and I know Morty's in this room. Yay, Morty, I'm rooting for you. And Jack Kahn from McClintock. I'm rooting for Jack too, I have to say that. I just realized what I did. But I want all the teachers to win. I'll move on. Leadership, Sarah Tolar, you're in this room, right? All right. And Maggie Fountain, our very own Margaret Fountain over at District Office. Where is she? She's here. If not, we were listening. Awesome. Teacher of the Year, Corey Ozum from McClintock, Reagan Guzman from Marcos, Brian Snyder from Tempe High. So these are some outstanding candidates for these wonderful, the excellent Tempe Diablos Excellence in Education Awards. The Tempe Diablos have really been dedicated to our community. They work also with Tempe Elementary and Kyrene Elementary School Districts, and we love them as our partner. Next, the Seal of Arts Proficiency, and I'm going to hand this over actually to Liz Stone, and I'm going to ask Liz to come up to the podium. Liz is another outstanding teacher from Tempe High and organizes the arts program for our districts and for our district. And this is such a culminating moment when you see the statistics for the recognition in the Seal of Arts Proficiency. So Liz, passing it on to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Mendeville, and thank you to Board President Garcia and distinguished board members. I appreciate this opportunity to share how well we have done with the Seal of Arts Proficiency in Tempe Union High School District. Just for a little background information, the Seal actually's first year was 2019-20, and we took a hit because COVID kind of derailed what was happening, but we still awarded 136 seals that year to students. There are actually several areas that they have to meet the seal. 4 fine arts courses with a GPA of 3.0 to 4.0. They have to get, and it's a graduated amount, so that first year there were 30 hours of extracurricular hours they had to log in the fine arts fields, working with other students, preparing for their practice for applying to a college, for example. There are lots of different ways they earn that. The other is that they have to create a capstone, and they have to present that capstone in a formal manner in front of an audience, and then they judged by their teacher with that capstone. So there's several ways that they had to meet that seal. That first year, to protect our students and in COVID safety, we did not do the extracurricular nor the capstone. As you all know, we weren't even in school the last quarter. But 19 LEAs participated that first year, and Tempe Union High School District was #1 with 136 seals awarded. So yay.
Yay.
In 2020, 2021, there were 31 LEAs that participated, and Tempe Union High School District was second with 87 seals. Paradise Valley was first with 93, so they really increased the number of LEAs or schools that were participating, and Tempe Union is still doing well. And in 2021-22, we had 127 students that earn seals. And so we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we're going to be able to be number one or up there high with the number of LEAs that are participating again. And this is not me, this is the students and the teachers in our district. And I had sent an email to Dr. Mendeville and all the teachers who participated this year. So proud of them, so proud of the students that are participating. And they can earn seals in dance, music, theater, and visual arts. So we are quite well represented. They like music a lot. That tends to be our highest number of seals, but we're also very high in dance. So I thank you for letting me share a little bit of the data. I do not want to take too much time, but I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Liz. Mrs. Hilgers had a few things to say as well.
Thank you.
So-
I do. Thank you, Dr. Mendeville, President Garcia, and members of the board. Liz, I want to publicly thank you, because while we recognize the work that our students and our teachers do at the site, you are the person who brought this forward to Tempe Union High School District. You're the one that has spearheaded this and facilitated this discussion and what we do at the sites, and this has been at the forefront of what you've done with our fine arts teachers for the past 3 years. And so thank you very much from me, from the rest of the executive team and the board. Thank you for what you've done for our students and our
Thank you.
teachers.
I appreciate that.
Next is the presentation of certificates to our foreign exchange students. And I'm going to ask that Stacy White come over and make the introductions. Stacy is currently in her role as a director of instructional services at the district office and has oversight of the program. And we're just grateful that she's here with us tonight to share some wonderful news about our foreign exchange students.
Good evening, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board, Superintendent Mendeville, and executive team. This evening, you are going to have in front of you 9 students that have participated this year in our foreign exchange program from 5 of our high schools. And so, like you, I'm excited that they get to come this evening and we're able to appreciate them with a certificate and to celebrate their experiences this year in Tempe Union. And so because of the pandemic, we weren't able to have exchange students last year. And this year, they get to be in front of you. So I know you're thrilled. So I would like, if you don't mind, to have the kids come up here. And normally I introduce them, but I think you would love to hear from them and not necessarily me. And so I have spoken with them ahead of time, and they would like to introduce themselves and tell you what high school they're at. They would like to tell you what country they're from, and then they would like to just acknowledge their host family, if that's okay this evening.
Absolutely. And then we would like a picture with all of our host and the students and their host families up front when they're done.
Absolutely. And so would one of you like to present them with the certificate?
You don't need my help.
So can I have all the exchange kids come on up? See, make sure I have them all. And this evening, we're going to start with Tempe High School. So, in true Tempe fashion, with the oldest school first, right? Okay.
Hello, my name is Luca, and I'm from Tempe High, and I come from Denmark. Oh, I live with Jamie, but she's not here today. Mr. Morgan.
Just stand over here.
Or do you want to line up? Yeah.
There we go. There you go. Marcos Deniza. Got 2 from Marcos Deniza. Come on up. There you
Good evening, everyone. I am Asra Zakia. I am from India, and I go to Marcos Deniza. That is my host, Mom Jolene Hayton. And that is my host, Sister Fiona Hayton.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Supakon Surarat. I'm from Thailand, and I'm at Marcos Deniza right now. Over there is my host family, the Goodmanson's family.
Good evening, I'm Philip Redlinger. I'm from Austria, and I go to Corona del Sol High School, and I'm here with my host parents, Bill and Rebecca Owens.
Hi, I'm Javi. I'm from Barcelona, Spain, and I go to Corona del Sol. And I brought with me my host brother, Will, and his girlfriend, Bella.
Hi, my name is Egle. I'm from Italy. That's my host family, Chich and Jen Miller, and I go to Corona. That's all.
Hi, I'm Diego. I'm from Spain. I'm from Mountain Point, and that's my whole family, Mike Hernandez and Kelly Hernandez.
Hi, I'm Alessia. I'm from Italy. I go to Desert Vista, and there's my host family, Amy, Quinton, and Belly, and I'm really glad to have them.
Hi, I'm Alina and I'm from Russia and I'm going to Desert Vista High School and I'm really enjoying. And this is also my host family and I think they're the best host family ever. This is Amy, Quinton, and my host sister Belly. Thank you.
Yeah. Can the board members come down and so you can take a picture, please?
Yeah, you guys, yeah, open them up. That's good. Okay, you guys can maybe window.
Happens a lot with some of these very powerful women.
I know, right?
I don't should be in the picture. You guys are the best.
And where should I
Come forward. Let me get out of the way now.
Thank you so much for coming this evening and picking Tempe Union to be a part of our exchange program. Hey.
Oh, that's nice, nice. Really nice. That's nice. So cool. It is.
That was nice. That was very. So I'm going to ask that if we can just all stay together for a little bit more, I think you're going to like what you see next. So, but students, thank you for being a part of our Tempe Union community. And parents, this exchange and this experience with the students doesn't happen without wonderful families like you guys. So really, really appreciate it. And I think that's just admirable and wonderful for our students to have that kind of experience. Our last item on the superintendent's report is we want to acknowledge our IB students, our International Baccalaureate students from Tempe High. I'm going to call up Michael Cooper. And Michael, I'm going to let you take it because there's so many good things with this. We want to show it, but you're going to narrate some of it if you will, but work it.
President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board, Dr. Mendeville, executive team, good evening and thank you so much for having us. Do you mind if I just bring everyone up?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Come join me. We've made a little slideshow here. I've promised these guys they don't have to have any surprise speeches or anything like that. There might be a picture. So we're part of a network of thousands of schools worldwide where I think we're, last time I checked, in 159 countries. And our aim is to develop students who are knowledgeable, inquiring, compassionate, and will use cultural understanding and respect to create a more peaceful world. So I'm going to tell you about a number of students tonight, and I'm just going to kind of go through this list. I want to say, though, before I show it, that one of our guiding principles, I'm sorry, is it not loud enough? Should I move this closer? Okay, sorry. Since the inception of this program, one of our guiding principles has been access. We want everybody who wants to be part of our special programs to be part of our special programs. We're always looking for ways to get people into a program and never for ways to get them out. So I'm going to explain a couple of things about what that means. But first I want to show you this slide that we put together. So this is where our graduates have tended in the time that I've been keeping records, which has been the last 6 years. This is not where they were accepted. They were accepted to many more schools. This is where they actually attended, and this is where they went on scholarship. So to that point of access, we have two types of IB students. The first is called an IB course candidate. There are students who take 1 to 5 IB courses, and this allows students to also be part of EVIT, HOPE, JROTC, AVID, ELL, and so they can be part of the IB program and part of these other programs. The second category is IB diploma candidates. Those are students who take an entire load of IB classes. They also take TOK. Right? They are required to participate in extracurricular activities like volunteering and sports and clubs, and they also complete independent research. So I'm going to highlight these guys, and we're basically going to concentrate on merit scholarships. Some of them are undecided on where they're going to school because we're still getting some information, but I wanted to be able to present them to you. And in addition to the merit scholarships, many have also additional financial aid, including the Obama Scholarship and the College Attainment Grant. Okay? So I want to just go ahead and talk about these guys here. So our first person is Nikki. Hey, Nikki. She's going to wave. Hi, Nikki. Hi. So she's an example of a course candidate. She's taking 3 IB classes, or you're taking 2 and 1 last year, right? Yeah. She's originally from Iran. She went from ELL to proficient in 1 semester. She's pursuing biomedical engineering, and she has a number of offers. She's going to accept the ASU President's Scholarship there, and you can see it on the screen. And we're still waiting for a word on the Wood Scholarship. This is Rogelio. Rogelio, where are you? Hi, Rogelio. So he's a first-generation U.S. citizen, first-generation college seeker. He was a Questbridge semifinalist. Now, he was offered ASU scholarship for the presidents, but he's going to accept the Notre Dame scholarship for $296,000. We'll hope you're attending in the fall. This is Andrea. She couldn't be here tonight. She's also a first-generation U.S. citizen. She's a first-generation college seeker. She also has a number of college offers for in-state universities. She's going to be accepting at ASU and starting in the fall. This is Axel. Axel's here. Hey, Axel. Hi. First-generation U.S. citizen, first-generation college. He's accepting the ASU President's Scholarship and attending there in the fall. That's awesome. Kalia. Oh, hey, Kalia. Hey, how's it going? First-generation college, Questbridge finalist, Flynn semifinalist, Gates finalist, but I say she's only not in those last 2 because she had to accept the first one. Now, she was offered in-state universities, but she's going to accept Stanford at $303,000. Liam. Hey, Liam. So Liam was also offered scholarship. It's a U of A, ASU, and I'm sorry, I think NAU also, right? Yes, awesome. He's going to go to Barrett's Honors College at ASU next semester. And Estrella is hiding back here somewhere. Hey, Estrella. So she'll be attending GCU. She's first generation college. She's pursuing nursing. She's a Questbridge semifinalist. She already has the GCU President Scholarship, and we're waiting on word on the dream. So. Denzel, so he's undecided. He's got a lot of scholarship offers, but I put on here special, I want to see, he's got these offers and they're very selective, Northwestern, and I put the percentages there on just kind of the likelihood of getting in, Claremont, Emory, Hamilton, UC Irvine. He's undecided. And where are you? Hey, Denzel. All right, Paige. Hey, Paige. So Paige was offered a few scholarships here in state, and she'll be attending Barrett's Honors College in the fall. And Jasmine, first generation U.S. citizen, first generation college. She was offered U of A and ASU, and she'll be attending ASU. Emma, who cannot be here tonight, she's first generation college, offered scholarships to both ASU and NAU. She's decided to go to ASU in the fall. And Thomas. Hey, Thomas. So Thomas, if I can say, had a dream school. This is the first time I've seen you without the shirts. Yeah, tonight, yeah. But he has it in the picture, so that's fine. He was offered Gonzaga, NAU. He decided to attend Notre Dame in the fall. So hell yeah. Okay, Anaf couldn't be here tonight. He's originally from Bangladesh, first generation U.S. citizen, first generation college. He was offered both NAU and ASU scholarships. He'll be attending ASU in the fall. Oh, sorry. And Rosendo, first generation U.S. citizen, and hi Rosendo, and he'll be offered, or he's offered a scholarship at ASU in the fall where he'll be attending. And Mecca couldn't be here tonight. She is actually undecided. She's first generation college. She's already been accepted to Howard, NAU, ASU, Hampton, and Spelman. She'll be making that decision in about a week. So. And Shirlene is not here tonight. She's a first generation U.S. citizen, first generation college. She's a Gates semifinalist. She was offered the Lumberjack, the ASU President Scholarship, and she'll be starting at ASU in the fall. And Cynthia. Cynthia? Oh, sorry. Hi, Cynthia. First generation U.S. citizen, first generation college, Questbridge semifinalist. She was offered NYU, USC, Vanderbilt, NAU, ASU, and she is accepting Vanderbilt for $356,000. So I think that's everybody that's on the list and is here tonight. We want to thank our families, our teachers, our staff, this board, and everyone that's helped all of these young people who've guided them and kind of nurtured them along the way. They always remind me that this is the reason why we do what we do. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Michael. Let's line up and take a photo, a well-deserved photo.
That's incredible.
Yeah, you guys just do a big horseshoe there. That really okay. And I'm like, hold it back.
Look at you.
Yep.
Got a second calling as a photographer.
Again, I want to thank you, Mr. Cooper. You're very humble, and I appreciate that, but gosh, what a wonderful job that you've done these last 6 years, and we see the outcome because of this impressive group of students that will be going on to do some wonderful things. And like I told our student group the other day with my student superintendent advisory council group, you know, your professions that you choose are noble, and we want to make sure we're making an impact in our world and making a difference in our world. We need that more than ever today, and it's just so inspiring to know you're going to go forward and do some great things. And so I, as your superintendent, as your governing board, we're extraordinarily proud of all of you, and we're going to be watching and tracking you. So congratulations to all of you. That concludes my report.
Thanks so much, Dr. Mandeville. Now I'm like, do we need to do the regular meeting?
And folks, you can go for the ice cream. And I wish I can go with you, but I'm here, so.
All right. Recalibrating here. All right, going to public comment. This is the time for the public to comment. Members of the governing board may not discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Right now, I think we only have three. Okay. Any documentation or literature enough for each board member that the public wishes to give to the governing board must accompany the presentation form, and the district is unable to photocopy documents for the distribution to the board. All right, Dr. Mandeville.
Thank you. We will call Maureen Sneed.
My name is Maureen Sneed, and I have been a member of the Marcos Deniza community since 1984. I graduated in 1986, student taught under Robert Innegas, and have been teaching social studies since. As someone that has seen her fair share of fires, floods, pandemic, and hopefully not locusts, I come here tonight to voice concerns I have about the future of Marcos Deniza. I am concerned with how our leadership has been chosen. I understand the application process. However, it appears that the interview process and feedback process are a bit convoluted. According to those in the interview process, our staff clearly felt that Stephen Threadgill was the best candidate for our campus. Many people, including myself, who were not involved in the process but had either attended the town hall or watched it, sent emails expressing just that. Staff members involved in the process relayed that questionable, racially motivated statements were made during conversations regarding the candidates. Others came forward and revealed that they had contact through both text and conversation with board members that assured them that Mr. Dominguez would be our next principal. These conversations took place prior to the beginning of the process. The day we heard our principal was leaving, we were told by the superintendent that Marcos would go without a principal for a year if we had to, in order to perform the due diligence necessary to consult with the community and stakeholders. The fact that Mr. Dominguez was named as our principal via text message from board members and district personnel alike as early as March 18th, weeks before the community and stakeholders were consulted, has many of the teachers questioning the validity of the process. Unfortunately, not one of those sources is willing to stand here at that podium tonight, not because they are lying, but because they are in fear of retribution. Statements such as, "I will have a target on my back," "They will make life miserable for me," "I have too much to lose," have been made. And to me, that's the most disturbing. As long as I have been in this district, I have never seen staff so scared to disagree with the district office. I have never seen so many people afraid to speak up. I have never seen such turnover in staff or administration. The climate of the district has definitely changed throughout the years, but never in this direction. Marcos Deniza does not need to be fixed. It needs to be reminded of who we are. When I heard Mr. Threadgill talk about tradition, transparency, and respect, it was clear he knew exactly who we were. Can't imagine anyone here tonight knows the Marcos students better than a former student or a teacher on our campus. I am tired of hearing that students have changed. They still are dealing with the same issues of homelessness, racism, violence, teenage pregnancy, and anxiety. But us caring about students has not changed. And how many of you sitting here tonight
Thank you. David Rojas.
Man, this place cleared out. Hi, my name is David Rojas. I'm a junior at McClintock High School. I'm here to talk about school start times. So like a few weeks ago, we had the ACT testing, and you know, when the younger, I guess the other classes were testing, you know, the other classes would come in later at like 12. And man, it is just indescribable, like how much better it feels to wake up, you know, not at 6:30. I mean, obviously I'm only speaking anecdotally, but you know, I think I've demonstrated it's not just me, you know, it's a lot of people. I think you probably know that like a lot of people who go to your schools don't really want to be there. And I really think that starting the schools later would have a huge impact on that. I mean, like people would care a lot more. I see, you know, later on the docket there's going to be some discussion of social and emotional wellness, and I really don't think there's anything the school board could do more to benefit students' social and emotional wellness than to start schools later.
Thank you. Hennica, A. Hennica. What is your first name with the A?
Tony.
Tony, okay. So, is that A for Anthony?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I've witnessed over 150 students in the classroom learning and getting to know their SRO. I've noticed two things. They're either indifferent because they have the attention span of a 10-second TikTok video, or they're curious and they're willing to carry on conversation. I ask you to stop pushing the fear-filled, emotionally hinged idea that really lacks reasonable thought and consideration for the bigger picture. Next, on September 15th of last year, an item was brought up about extended leave relief having to do with COVID. And it was stated, this was stated, that this extension to some degree of leave opportunities that protect our employees who have done what we have requested them to do in terms of, you know, being vaccinated, staying healthy, being quarantined, being mindful, and all of that. So this has been extended to May of this year. What I'm puzzled about is, this was really weird. On July 29th of last year, I went to a meeting at my home school discussing the district's extended COVID-related leave plan. What was really weird was getting these notices on my phone about how the vaccinated still spread the virus as I was walking in the building. It was just strange, prophetic even. There's no doubt about this now. For a district that states in their core values and beliefs to provide a healthy, happy, safe, and supportive work environment, you would think that there would be at least be a concern, even a discussion as to maybe why an employee can't be vaccinated. Why this type of segregation is enforced, I don't know. Why this type of discrimination tolerated, I don't know. It's strange. It's so strange. It's like we're living in a different world. I've not read the updated COVID policy. I will tell you that. I have no time. I'm trying to be a good father, a husband, teacher. I'm busy. I don't have the time for the new one. I read the old one. It is discrimination by far. If vaccinated this, if not that. That's so strange. I want to recount to you how a previous policy affected my teaching and my students. In late November, early December of 2020, a student came to me to share that they were feeling suicidal. Well, I guess if I went to the policy there at that time, get away, 6 feet. It's been more than 15 minutes. I know that was during asynchronous. I know that was some time ago. But still, to have that, that just doesn't come in my mind. Okay, so I just want to finish saying thank you to that student who I won't share his name, but who I did ask for permission for. So thank you, Brandon. Let's go. I really appreciate him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Merrill, do we have any additional public comment?
We do not. That is it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next, we have our consent agenda item. I move approval of items G1 through 9. May I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you so much, Member Hodge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Next, we have teaching and learning, item number 1, curriculum adoption for the 2023-2024 school year. Dr. Menville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board, executive team, and our viewing and listening audience. This is the time of year where we bring forward recommendations from the Curriculum Adoption Committee for the 23-24 school year. The District Curriculum Council Committee met in the spring of 2022 and reviewed the submitted requested course proposal changes. The committee consisted of 3 representatives from each site and was led by the district's content specialists and included the assistant principals of academics, counselors, content department representation, PPA coordinator, IB coordinator, and special education representation. I'm going to ask that Stacy White come and provide additional information. And since this item is for action, and you have the course proposal, course adoption recommendations in front of you, and should you have any questions. But Stacy, I'm going to honor your time and any presentation or information you'd like to share.
Sure. Good evening again. So it probably seems a little odd because I was here in the fall doing this same thing, but since we have moved up our registration, it is time to go through the 23-24 course adoption process. And so the courses that we are bringing forward this evening will be for the 23-24 school year. I know that seems so weird since we haven't even started the 22-23 school year. And so the work of the committee resumed in January, where, like Dr. Mendeville said, we had representation of assistant principals, directors, academic teachers, and counselors. And so the APAs, or the assistant principals, were given the course proposals to then distribute to their department leaders to take to their staff if there were any proposed or needed changes for this upcoming adoption process. They received those in December, and then they were due in January. The committee then met 3 different times as a committee. One time, the first time that we met, we always go over the board policies, the requirements of the committee, the needs that they will be considering, the different groups that they represent, and understanding what it would mean to do a description change, a credit change, a course change, and those implications, so that then they can take it back to their committees at their sites and have the same process happen at the sites that we do then at the district level through that committee work. So we go through the rules, then the next time we get together, we look through the proposals, we talk through all of them, we discuss all of them, we ask questions to the proposers, and then that group of 3, which the teacher representation, the parent representation, and the administration representation go back to their sites and do their committee work and give them the same course proposals and feedback. Then they come back to the next meeting. We again discuss them, answer any questions, engage in conversation around them, and vote. So this evening, Teaching and Learning is bringing forward to you this time 27, so not 127 this time round, or 427, but 27 course proposals for the 23-24 school year. And the proposals were made available to you for review, along with the reasons for the proposed changes. And so I welcome any comments that you may have this evening.
Thank you so much. Board members, any thoughts, comments, or questions on this item? All right, looks like none for tonight. Dr. Mendenville, do you have anything?
No, since we moved up the registration process, there are a lot of systems and processes that had to be moved up, and this was one of them. So I just commend Teaching and Learning and Stacy organizing and back designing the work that needs to go. And she started that a year ago. So thank you.
Welcome. We will be in good shape come October when we start to give the materials to our feeder schools for registration for the next school year.
Yes.
So thank you so much for this
Thank
work.
you, Stacy. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Stacy, and Teaching and Learning. I know it's a lot of work in the process, so I appreciate it. All right, I move approval of H1. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Normally, we would have I1, but at agenda adoption, we firm Clifton, Larson, and Allen could not be here tonight, but we're working on rescheduling so they can come and present the audit reports with us in person. So we'll move next to our next section, informational items, starting with social emotional wellness update part 2. If y'all remember, we had to cut short due to timing and questions, but we wanted to have some additional time to wrap that piece up. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Mendenville.
Thank you, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board, executive team. Mr. McDonald, you're going to introduce these fine individuals who contribute every day to the work that we do and have input on this. There's a lot of work that went into the presentation, so I'm glad that we're affording this opportunity to finish the final, I think it's fourth of the presentation, because there's a lot of good stuff that we didn't get to for because of time, and that's okay. So we're being mindful of that. Mr. McDonald, why don't you introduce those who are with us today?
Thank you very much for the added time. Of course, Ron Denny will continue the presentation. We'll have Eric Lauer, our wellness coach here, Maria Gonzalez, Care 7, Cynthia Martinez, not my kid. They'll all speak to the remaining parts. And if you have any questions on those parts, we'll be happy to answer those for you. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Denny, and he can introduce Cynthia and Eric Lauer, I believe, correct?
Yes. There you go. Yes.
Thank you, guys. Good evening. Cynthia's here with us. She was actually a district employee at one point, is now with Not My Kid. She's going to be here to kind of answer and explain any questions we might have in reference to the Boffin's life skills. Currently, we're at Mount Point High School. We've been to almost every school so far this year, offering the life skills. You see there the general life skills for 9th and 10th graders, and then transitions, whether it be to the workforce or college, is the transitions part. And then we also offer, through Not My Kid, Amplify. Those are presentations. Our latest one was real powerful in reference to social media at Corona High School that went real well last month. And then students that are identified to maybe needing more support and skills and tools, we add the Let's Talk About It. Those are smaller groups that we invite those students in to share and give them more tools, whether it be conflict resolution, anger management, and things like that to help support them on our school campuses.
Thank you, Dr. Mandeville, President Garcia, Vice President Montero, members of the board and executive team for having me here today. I am a graduate of Corona. I attended Compadre, and I've also worked here for about 3 years, and I'm just so grateful to still be connected to you guys. I am currently the Director of Prevention for Not My Kid. So we deliver all of the services that you see here above. The majority of our services, I would say about 97% of them, fall under universal prevention, which means that we're not targeting any specific groups or classes. All of the education that we provide is for the general population that you have here at the district. So a lot of our time is really spent on the delivery of the Bodvin's curriculum. As Eric was explaining, there's 2 different curriculums that we deliver, which would be your regular life skills that goes to 9th and 10th graders, and then your transitions for 11th and 12th graders. Our way of getting into the classrooms is by working directly with your PE, dance, yoga, health classes, and any sports-specific classes. That's how we get in. The life skills consist of a total of 10 sessions per cycle, and transitions is a total of 7 sessions per cycle. So this is a nationally recognized curriculum. It is evidence-informed. It has yielded a lot of great outcomes. We know that it reduces substance use within the schools, and it also brings down violence. But for the last 2 years, we've actually been doing some free evaluation for the life skill sessions. What we have found, if I can pull up my notes really quick, in our last quarter, your students, 19% had an increase in perception of risk of drugs and alcohol, 12% increase in intent not to vape, and then 15% increase in intent not to misuse prescription drugs. So we know that we are having a statistical significant difference in your students, so we know that we are being successful. As Eric mentioned, your life skills sessions mostly focus on session 1. It's really getting the students to identify what their values are and who they wish to be for the next 3-4 years. And then we start injecting interpersonal skills as well as drug resistance skills with them. That's our main goal. Then once we start going into our transitions, that's really the second dose that they receive, where we're still working on those same very skills. But now we're starting to start the conversation with them about what does life look like after Tempe Union, because there isn't one path for all, and we need to be able to accept that. So then we start talking about the universities, the community colleges, trade schools, or going straight into the workforce. And we just kind of help them really detangle their thoughts around it so they have a clear path, or at least start considering what their options are. So that's our Bodvin's curriculum. I do want to give you guys an idea of what our reach is. So in one complete grant cycle, we will reach, just with LST, a total of 2,000 students at Tempe Union, and through transitions, we will touch a total of 1,300 students. So we are touching a lot of students at this given time. So for the Amplify presentations, the last one that we did was at Corona. We try to be very intentional with the presentations. So what we do is that we go into the schools, we talk to the admin, staff, and students. We figure out what the hot topic is. And then after that, we just have some meetings with them so they can let us know what are the main things that we want the students to take away. So when we were at Corona, we determined that the best thing for us to address was internet safety and bullying. After having several conversations with the staff, we determined that the main things that we wanted the students to walk away were, what is the difference between bullying and roasting? How can you protect yourself online? How do you report T accounts? What to do when you find yourself in the middle of a rumor, and how do you control the rumor? And then finally, how do you report it to the school? And then how do you also express to a bully that you no longer want to be bullied, right? You express, you disengage, and then you report. Now, I know that it was a highly successful presentation because we did have a lot of Corona students slide into our DMs, thanking us for the delivery. And we also had parents that reached out to Not My Kid all the way out in Gilbert. So it must have been some of the boundary exceptions just saying that we got the seal of approval from the students. So we're really happy with that. And then finally, the Let's Talk About It that are ran by Geronimo Montaño. For any students that are identified as just needing some additional support, or the students that really just bonded with our staff, since they are spending about 2 weeks at a time with us, they start building a relationship with us, and then, they just wish to continue. So we have that. So this is what we're currently contracted to deliver for Tempe under one of your STOP grants and your Trauma-Informed Primary Prevention grant. But we are also holders of 15 internal grants at Not My Kid. So thanks to some of those grants, I want to give you an idea of the services that we're able to provide. So in one grant year, we'll deliver 88 free substance misuse presentations at no cost to the district, which is a total of about $48,000. Free evaluation for the LST. And then for this coming year, we'll also start providing evaluation for transitions. And then we also do any mobile outreach that you guys invite us to. So that's my basic summary.
Thank you.
The last two slides were basically the funding from the two grants like Cynthia spoke of that we use to have Not My Kid come in. We're also partnering with Care 7 in some of the things that we're doing, as well as the STOP grant is helping with the suicide prevention training that we'll be going through to support all of our schools in the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next thing we wanted to talk about is just some family support for our social emotional wellness. In the past, we've used Triple P workshops, and some of those workshops have included teen brain, suicide prevention. This school year, we've offered these to parents online. We also have our Tempe Union website resources. And then one of the newest things that we've done is implemented Care Solace. So Care Solace is a private company that we've contracted with and just started using since March 2nd when we did the training for all of our student support professionals. And what Care Solace does is it helps us connect families, students, and staff to mental health resources and substance abuse. So there's several ways that people can use this. One is warm handoffs. So our folks, our youth specialists, our counselors, psychologists, nurses, and other support professionals can actually go use a platform, put in contact information with verbal consent from a family, send that in, and then Care Solace then takes over that case and connects that family with resources. They speak multiple languages, so basically any language you need, that they have somebody to do that. Last I heard, when a warm handoff is done, it takes can be about 10 minutes when that first call from Care Solace comes in. And then this is our key performance indicators that was put together for me on Friday by Tyler Chamness, our contact with Care Solace. And you can see how many inbound interactions there are, communications saved, and I'll explain that real quick, and then how many warm handoffs we've done, family, total appointments into care, and then just searches. So as of right now, I pulled the numbers today, we have 70 cases that are current. We have 42 that are pending appointments. We have 10 that have booked appointments. And then Care Solace, this is the big piece, they have made 871 phone calls to those 70 cases, and they've sent 1,400 emails and texts. So where they really help is that follow-up. They do the legwork for the family to get that to connect. So that's what's great. You don't have to take 4 hours to do it yourself. There's somebody's there doing it and helping you, assisting you on the way. And then this is just a breakdown graphs of the current, drugs that are being reported. the mental health needs, and then the demographic data. These are just some of the partnerships that we have been using in the community. Again, City of Tempe, and in Phoenix, our Tempe Community Council, Tempe Coalition, our pathway programs, ASU, the Home-Based Initiative. This is actually a student-based group out of ASU, or was started at ASU, and is actually right now led by Andy McDonald, which is really cool because Andy was a graduate of our at Mountain Point. So it's kind of coming full circle in her involvement in supporting Mountain Point and then getting them to support our students moving forward in other schools. Again, Not My Kid, Teen Lifeline, Living Works, and then our educational life skills for our restorative practices. And I'd like to turn it over to Maria Gonzalez from Care 7.
That one. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us back and giving us the opportunity to share the information. I know we were cut short last time, so I really do appreciate being here tonight. Just a reminder of the services that the youth specialists have always provided here in Tempe Union High School District. Really, it's overall social and emotional support for students, whether it's through individual sessions or support groups. As you all know, last year we added the home visits, especially because we started providing services over the summer, and that is still the plan this next summer for you to, as well. In addition to continuing our support groups and individual sessions in person. So we're really excited about that because that wasn't something we were able to do last year. It was all virtual. So we'll be able to offer a hybrid, I guess, of both. And all of that, continue to do resource connection, Sandy Hook Promise activities, and the monthly activities that we do on campus, and then, like I said, home visits. So this was actually one of the biggest things I wanted to come in and share with you all. This was the data when we first had scheduled this session. So last year in the fall, we had served about 556 students. This year, or in 2020, I'm sorry, we had served, the total year, we had served 743 students. So that was all school year, last year. And we had a total of 3,669 interactions. This last fall, we had served 781 students. And to date, we have served 981 students and had a total of 4,126 interactions. So it's definitely increased. That is not to say that it is because there's more going on. There might be more going on. But that's also because a lot of the work that Mr. Denny and our partners have been able to do to get together and to let students know about the resources that are available on campus. We've been able to really figure out a referral process and continue working through that. And we've been able to get together as teams and start talking about who needs help and trying to identify students that really need help. So I think that that's actually one of the biggest driving factors for those numbers going up is access to services. So, and sometimes I kind of want to say that out loud because I don't want the numbers to be misrepresenting something. It is, I think, truly the efforts of Mr. Denny and access to services. So I do want to say that. So moving forward, we'll continue collecting the data for the summertime. I do want to come back and report to you how much engagement we had from students and staff as well, and be able to share with you those services provided over the summer. So any questions for me?
Board members, any thoughts, comments, or questions at this time? I'm sure we'll circle back
right.
as we digest
Thank you.
the info. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And then the last piece of this is just some initial thoughts on where we go from here. So big piece now is we've started to implement things, start moving forward, but now it's just to monitor them closely, look at our structures. Again, we talked about in Mr. McDonald's study session earlier about student-centered school climate and culture. Mountain Point next year has a renewed implementation for PBIS system. We've also been talking, and Tempe High is going to be a part of that as well, and perhaps some other schools moving forward. So they'll be developing their systems next year and then rolling those out on the school year after. We also have plans to do school-based cognitive behavior therapy and narrative therapy for our student support professionals, those that are doing a lot of this counseling, our school counselors, our school social workers, behavior interventionists, our youth specialists. And I want to be clear on this. These are skills that we're going to be doing, not providing actual therapy. We don't do that in schools. Again, our youth specialists do some of that, but it's helping folks to build those skills on how to better interact, solution-focused, those types of things with kids. One of the requests from our folks has been more information on non-suicidal self-injury training. So we're going to be working with Teen Lifeline to set that up. And then just one of the things that came out of the study sessions that I wanted to highlight was actually Board Member Barraza, is we did have done an eating disorder workshop. We did that in January at a request from our folks. We did that through Rosewood, and it was a virtual, and it was, we have plans to do those again, because that is definitely something that we have seen a need in, so we are addressing that piece of it too. I think that is it. Any questions?
Well, first of all, thank you for your time and for coming back and for helping us finish this out and address any additional questions. So, board members, thoughts, comments, or questions on the presentation? Member Barraza, followed by Vice President Montero.
Just really quick, I know there's a lot, programs, and you guys are constantly engaging and figuring out how to grow them. I really appreciate that. Thank you for mentioning the eating disorder aspect of what you guys are working on in social emotional. I highly respect all of you. You guys have a difficult job when, it's always very emotionally draining, because you're looking at some very serious situations, and you're also looking at how do we provide students not only resources but direction, life skills, mentorship. That really has a huge impact on their lives, and they'll definitely remember you all for it, later on. As a student that was school to prison pipeline and struggled with addiction and teen parent, it's great to see so many aspects of the resources and for our entire staff to care so much about social and emotional wellness of our staff and students. So thank you. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Member Barraza. Vice President Montero.
First, I want to thank all of you for coming back tonight and finishing the presentation. We had a really good discussion the last time, and so I'm glad we're able to continue that conversation because this is such an important topic. I did have one, and regarding Care Solace, a quick question for you, because I was really glad that we've brought that on, and I've heard some great things so far. But I'm curious of what the feedback or reception has been from our teachers, from our staff, from the rollout so far.
It's been positive on that piece from those that are using it and have been aware. Our next step, I'm actually working with Megan Sterling to get the message out to the community and that piece. And then the nice thing with Care Solace too is they provide us with a lot of marketing things that are already there. And as we talked about last, at the first part of the presentation, is our monthly themes. A lot of those can be implemented. So like in May, we already have set, Kelly Gardner already put that into place for us on May 5th and 6th. There will be social media posts coming out that are going to be related to Mental Health Awareness Month. And then we can start building those out for that piece of it. The other feedback that we're getting, and this is the part where is still uncertain, is how fast do people actually get appointments? And right now, like I said, we have 70 cases, 42 pending, and only 10 appointments booked. In talking with Care Solace, those are in the pipeline. It's not speeding up the access to those providers, but what it is, where it is speeding it up, is they're staying in constant contact with the family or the referral source, so the family doesn't have to, so they can be in contact and making sure those appointments are getting set up. So from that end of it, we're getting very, very positive feedback.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question with respect to the increase in numbers, which, I'm glad that there is, because we're, looking for more access to students and services. But I also am wondering, how is your capacity individually as these numbers go up? I also think about, I can imagine it takes an emotional toll, right? So how are we taking care of you all as you all take care of our students?
No, I want you to keep that one. You get to keep that one. So great question. And one of the things that I did skip very quickly, I'm not quite sure why, is that because of you, we actually were able to get 5 additional youth specialists this year starting in January. And that's actually going to be helping a lot of our current youth specialists address the needs. So we're currently in the hiring process right now to try to, because we do have 2 at Marcos de Niza because Compadre moved over. So we have 2 there already, and we're working on hiring another 4. We have 1 hired at Tempe High that just started recently as well. So we're working through it, and my hope is to have everybody fully staffed by summertime, to be very honest with you, so we can start training and get all of that stuff out of the way, so come August we can get going. But right now, the schools that have the 2 youth specialists, I've been able to see a difference because now they do have a counterpart that can address a lot of the individual, a lot of the crisis situations, which has been fantastic. And again, it's thank you to Tempe Union High School District for funding those positions. So that's how we've been able to address it so far. In regards to Care 7, I know that we do a lot for our employees in trying to take care of ourselves. Self-care is a big thing in our world because we can't function in an empty cup. But I know that the partnership with, again, Ron and Mr. McDonald has been amazing, and we've been able to support each other that way as well, and Mr. Lauer, of course. So.
I think just one more comment on that. I think the increase in numbers is showing the need, but it's also what are those numbers telling us and what are the reasons behind those? And I think as we are working with our teams on our MTSS systems and bringing them together to have those conversations, there's ways for folks to deal with certain situations and kind of spreading that around. So the high needs and looking at it from a tiered approach. But then how are we doing our universal prevention, all the things Cynthia talked about, the school safety, all of that, which will hopefully impact it as well.
No, thank you, and I appreciate that illustration too. And I guess the other thing that I think about too is, obviously we think about our academic counselors and we always talk about the ratio, right? And so when I'm thinking about that, I always instantly go into, all right, what is our Tempe Care 7 ratio? Are those, and I'm glad that obviously we're been able to increase, but is that conducive to the ratio that we're looking at and what we anticipate, especially as we start adjusting and raising awareness that will naturally lead to an increase in access and more numbers?
If I'm hearing you correctly, is do we have enough staff to support the needs that we have? Probably not, to be truthful. But we're working on that. We've added youth specialists, we've added behavior interventionists, more counselors. We're looking at social workers. We have behavior interventionists, not only additionally in special education, but also general education. So I think we're moving that forward. It's definitely a lot more staff than we had when I started in 2006. So that is a huge positive. But as we start to see the needs, I think we will need to look at that and how do we provide that support. And oftentimes it doesn't have to be, depending on what we're looking at, and I think it goes back to the data, is looking at what data do we have and where are those needs, and then how are we allocating resources to those needs. And that could be programs, instruction, curriculum, but what does that look like? But then also the human capital that comes with that.
May I make a comment on that? First of all, I want to thank President Garcia and the rest of the board because they're very astute in the importance of self-care. So you don't see that in governing boards every day. So I'm just eternally grateful for that. But in my conversations and interactions with students, I am concerned about that, quite frankly. So I'm glad you brought it up in that one of the key pieces twice now that I've met with students is that they wish they knew more about access opportunities for them And whether we do that through an assembly or however that information gets out. So that's come out loud and clear with our students. I think you are going to see more services come forward because we have wonderful people and they're going to feel comfortable going to someone, a caring adult. But we're going to have to pay close attention to that. I would like to be informed if there are additional needs or resources that are needed. I need to know that so that we can respond appropriately, okay? So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. All right, next is Member Hodge. Member James. All right, I just saw the two lights. So Member James and then Member Hodge, followed by Vice President Montero.
Thank you. I'm wondering how you target specific groups or provide differentiated services for, say, our ELL students and their families that may not have the communication that they may need, or cultural barriers or what have you, when it comes to asking for help and receiving care, how you're kind of, again, differentiating that.
I think it's right now that is a definite need, and we're an area for us to continue to target and build on. I think it always will be. I think for me, it's finding who needs to be at the table to do that. And I think, again, as the influx of refugees are coming in, as one example, is having partnerships with like the IRC or cultural brokers, families that can help us access those communities and be kind of that expert in there to help us get that information and pull them in. And that's something that we'll be working on ongoing for sure.
Thank you. Member Hodge.
Okay, I'm going to try to be very, very brief because I know we're getting late. So my question is, is there any way that we can do and break down the data by schools, by districts? What is the concerns? Don't have to do that now. That's just a question. And my second concern is when we see like something going on in the school, like can affect a student, the whole student population. Can our Care 7 youth specialists come in and speak to maybe the staff so they be prepared ahead of time? So say like a tragedy happens at one of our schools, that they come in and kind of prepare the staff ahead of time too, to be able to look for the outliers in our students, because sometimes they don't go to the help they need. We have to come to them. So that's one of the questions I have, that maybe we can just educate our staff, because you did say a true statement that we don't have enough. So we have to start having our teachers be able to see it too, not make it on more on their plate, but also they're the ones who have the more eye contact with our students. If they see it and we know something's going to happen that can affect them, maybe give them some talking points ahead of time so they can see it and know how to handle that. So not a question you have to answer right now, but that's something I just want you to think about.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Hodge. Vice President Montero.
So I just had two quick follow-up questions. The first one is related to, I think we've talked about this in previous discussions. Specifically, we were looking at the policy, was the idea of, looking at the connection with our elementary feeder districts and having that smooth transition from, the elementary level to the high school level, specifically for a lot of those kids that might have found that support at the middle school level, and how do they, have that smooth transition into high school? How have those conversations been started, or what has that looked like so far?
From my end, I think every school is in a different place on how they have those systems or those contacts and that communication already. I know from my end this year, it's been conversations with the social emotional leads in Tempe Elementary and in Kyrene, as well as the surrounding districts. So we've had those conversations. What we're trying to do is, as I always say, is unify without being unified. So are we using the same threat assessment model? Are we using the same overarching crisis intervention model? We're trying to do a lot of those things to bring that piece of it. And I think, and then also in those conversations, it's identifying what the needs are, who those students, and then those ways of bringing those students and connecting them. So one example, as I mentioned last time, is about mentor days. One of the things that we've talked about in the past was bringing bringing middle school to the high school and finding a way to connect them that way through that mentorship piece, through clubs. I know some of the sports teams do outreach, so it's just continuing those pieces. Those are the examples I think that come for right now. I don't know if that addresses the question.
Yes, thank you.
We also have CARE 7 youth specialists in our middle schools that can transition and help support the communication as well.
Perfect, thank you. The last question I had, and this kind of goes to President Garcia and Dr. Mendevil's point about, raising awareness about a lot of those resources that are available. I think one of the biggest barriers to students that might even be aware is obviously the stigma that's on campus and associated with mental health. And I know we've taken steps at that to try and address that by, we've said trying to integrate social emotional learning into not just our health classes, but, where appropriate across all classes. And I'm kind of curious, has that conversation, or how has that played out? I think having those conversations in the classrooms is key. And throughout the past year and talking to students and teachers is one of the biggest things that they want, is to be able to have the opportunity and know how to spark some of those conversations in their classrooms.
I think those conversations are definitely happening, and we're starting to have more in-depth conversations, from a district level. And what is that plan going to look like? Now that we know where our need is how do we embed those competencies in those conversations? But I think the bigger piece too goes to not only climate and culture, but then giving our teachers the tools to do those things to the level that they're comfortable doing. We do have some staff that are going to be better at it than others, just like in anything. But if they can do it to the best of their ability, then that's all we can ask. But I think that's the ongoing piece, is to destigmatize and how we talk about mental health and what does that look like in creating that safe space. And then also the physical and psychological safety, and having that as the foundation of everything that we do and building upon that. And I think that's where that comes from as well. And then just continuing, like you said, is building it into whether it's curriculum, lessons, finding unique ways to do that. I think engaging our students in that conversation, because they have great ideas in that piece of it, but our teachers are too. And we have teachers across the district that are already doing a lot of that. It's identifying them, and then how do we get that on a broader scale? But that is the work that needs to be done.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. I have one more question, and I'm glad Member James raised it. It's relating to refugee students, right? So I work with refugees every day, and I cannot do my job without social workers. And there has been a high need for more to help address specific challenges that they're going through for various reasons. And I'm wondering, how are we providing you all the support so you all can best serve our refugee students that have those very, very unique needs that, might be the first time that we're seeing it?
I think one of those that has come up, I know that Dr. Moon, we've been talking, is bringing in a conversation or a workshop from the IRC to have that and start that conversation. Going back to the linking with other districts, I mentioned we do sister districts. So there's an East Valley Prevention Group that Eric and I are part of, along with all the other district leads. And we just had this conversation 2 weeks ago. And we're all kind of collaborating now that we all have that need, and what are going to be those best practices and what supports are out there and how can we share those resources. And I think that's the piece. It's just the education, the training, and the awareness of that, and then getting that information in.
Oh, great, thank you, I appreciate it. All right, board members, any other thoughts, comments, or questions at this time? Dr. Mendeville? All right, well, thank you all so much. We really appreciate you taking the time. Don't want to take too much more, so thank you so much for being here.
Excellent work, you guys, thank you.
All right, next we have informational item 2, financial report through April 12th, 2022. And this is informational item only, and we'll move into communications from governing board members. I'm not going to look at Member Hodge, but I'm just going to say.
You know, you can go first, too.
That is true, that is true. Not today, though.
Is Mike going first, for real? Yeah, for real. Okay, all right. I can't remember everything I did. I just want to start off that we did the State of the District, which was phenomenal to be at. Myself, Dr. Mendeville, President Garcia, and Vice President Martego, we did that together. Congratulations to the Film Festival at Corona del Sol. I went to the Impact newspaper opening. The reason why I mention them is because they now cover all of the governing boards in Tempe for the newspaper. So they actually have very good articles on us. So if we ever get a chance, read our articles that they put about us on there. I want to congratulate all of the Tempe Diablo Excellence finalists, and they're all winners. So no matter who wins, you're all winners in my book. I went to the Dollars for Scholars. We had a lot and lots of scholarships. Proud of that. And I whipped right over to the spring banquet. And congratulations to one of our people, Dr. Battle, who she got the Lifetime Award. Mr. McDonald and myself last night went to the Ramadan dinner. We represented Tempe Union for the city of Tempe, and we also had one of our McClintock Peggy Payne students was the MC for it, so it was a really good time. Congratulations on the Courage Awards. I watched it, it was sometimes tear-jerking, the other times it was just out of pride. So congratulations on that. And yesterday I also got the chance to see the last the superintendent's advisory with the students. They invited me to it. So Dr. Beneville, you do a phenomenal job of that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Member Hodge. I will go next. I won't repeat everything because we essentially went to most of the same things together. But I did want to take a moment, and it's a moment of pride for us, to recognize Vice President Montero. He recently was announced to be the Arizona recipient for the Truman Scholarship, which is a huge feat. He had to go through multiple interviews and processes to get this. It's taken a long journey. There's a lot that goes into it, and we're just excited that he gets to represent Arizona and as a Sun Devil, and then go into ASU law or pursue it. I know we're not allowed to talk too much about that piece, but I'm really excited. Yes, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but it's one of the most prestigious scholarships in the country when it comes to public service and government and what we do with our lives. So I just wanted to take a moment and congratulate him. I'll withhold additional comments because I'm not getting emotional. So, but that is all I have to report. Who would like to go next?
We got to go in order. I had to go first.
Member Barraza.
Again, it's always great to see everyone here tonight, and it was wonderful to see students in a packed house again. It was great to see the IB students, our international students, and just the families. First, I want to thank the families for taking in our students. It's a big responsibility, and I appreciate those families that stepped up. So thank you for that. First off, Dollars for Scholars, always incredible. Always emotional for me. The State of the District, Congressman Greg Stanton was always, it was great to be able to see Tempe, all Tempe, there present. Well, the entire district, actually. Out of that came, I'm looking to, I set up with the Tempe Chamber. They want to see how they can be helpful with our district in more ways, and so we're going to talk about our marketing, our business programs, and see eventually, I'm going to reach out to you, Dr. Meneville, to be able to maybe convey that information, point them in the right direction, because I think we have a good partnership in them. And they're talking about mentorship, they're talking about internships, and that goes along with our next steps. And so I think it'd be great if, if we can figure out where we can fit them in. Other than that, I spent a lot of time meeting again with Sean McDonald, David Huffine, and talking about school safety. We spent a lot of time, and it was a very energetic conversation. I appreciate the focus and the emphasis, and I felt very good about David's mindset. It really reassured me. The words he was using were very much, like mentorship and looking at how we can lift students up. And I really appreciate that. So thank you for taking the time, Sean and David, for meeting with me on that, for that topic. And I look forward to learning more. Tamika Banks, I was at Mountain Point today. Thank you, Steve Adams, for taking me along. And really it was, I think he's going to make a good tour guide for Mountain Point, because that's really what we did. I learned a lot about the culture, the buildings, the remodeling, the artwork. It was really great to just kind of walk the campus and just instill all of that value and that culture into my mindset, so I can understand more of what everyone's working on. So I met with some staff members briefly. I know it was during the middle of the school day, so I'm not looking to disrupt, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Tamika, for, allowing me to that time with, on their campus. Lastly, I'd like to also just acknowledge Darren Martinez. He's with Tempe Police. He works in administration, and we graduated together. And I just saw on Instagram that he's retiring after 20 years, with them. And I'm just like, is that where we're at now? I'm like, gosh, I feel so old, when I start seeing posts about my friends retiring and starting new stories. So I just want to acknowledge that. He is a Padre, and it's just great to see someone that, talking to him, is just a very valuable person to our community. So I just want to acknowledge that. Other than that, I just wish you all lots of good health, lots of love, and take care of yourselves. It was a good conversation today about school safety and social emotional wellness, and I'm very proud of the work that we're all doing here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Member James or Vice President Montero?
All right. I'll go in order. Member Hodge said so. Yes. So much is going on at this time of year. I know that Marcos Deniza is doing their night of shorts over the next few days, and I'm excited to see that. Earth Day is Friday. Yay. I'm excited that we are a district that's going to have sustainability officers, and look forward to seeing how that's going to impact our community and how that's going to impact the bigger community. So I'm going to be done, and I just want to thank everybody for the presentations tonight. It was wonderful, and appreciate all of the work from Ron Denny, Mr. McDonald, and yeah, it's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member James. All right, Vice President Montero.
Thank you. As Member James said, busy time, lots of stuff going on. So I'm probably forgetting something, but had the chance to go to the state of the district. Member Hodge, Member Barraza, President Garcia, and Dr. Mendeville. Had the chance to go to Dollars for Scholars, as well as the All City Awards, which were on the same night. So that was quite the experience. And that's really all I have, but I will go and do the gifts and donations before I forget. I know. So we had $200,000 to Marcos and Mountain Point from the Arizona Cardinals Charities. We had $3,500 to Marcos Deniza from the Tempe Union Education Foundation, $1,500 to the district from the Tempe Union Education Foundation. We had $25 to McClintock from the Coca-Cola Give. And then we had 3 separate donations from the Arizona Department of Education to Corona, Desert Vista, and Mountain Point, or McClintock, for resources for various projects. We had another donation of resources for various projects, estimated at $2,000 from the Fiesta Bowl Charities to Desert Vista. And we had Robert Lutz to Desert Vista for used golf clubs, estimated at $40. And that is all I have.
Great, thank you so much, Vice President Montero. Dr. Medeville, anything from you or the executive team?
No, but I just want to thank the executive team. They're always working their hardest and really care about our students and families in this district. And for that, I'm just always grateful. So thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you. All right, it is 8:33 and our next regular meeting is May 4th. I move to adjourn. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. We are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.